Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It's Friday, it's the 6th of February and we have reached the end of week 5, ladies and gentlemen, of this brand new venture of ours, which is going rather well. I'm delighted to tell you that we've got, over the course of the last 7 days, more than 631,000 views of the show, which has been absolutely brilliant. And also, 6 million views we've crashed through overnight, which we are very pleased to report. Also, yesterday I think was the highest ever viewing figure on the actual individual show, which came in at something like 85,000. So thank you to all of you. Thank you for your loyalty. Thank you for continuing to tune in, and thank you for continuing to watch what can only be described as the most exciting breakfast show in Britain right now. I'm even more delighted to tell you that we've got the greatest paper reviewer this morning. It is Rafe Heidelwein-Koo. Rafe, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been quite a week. We're going to be running through all the stories on the front page of the papers, very much dominated still by the hopeless, hapless, useless Prime Minister of ours, Keir Starmer, who came out yesterday and said he was very sorry for what had happened before. And we must all think about the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who he didn't really think about when he appointed Lord Mandelson to be the Prime Minister's representative in Washington, D.C., because nothing's changed, right? When he appointed Mandelson to be ambassador to the United States of America, he didn't think about the victims then, but the victims were there. So what's different?
Nothing's different at all. I mean, I think that he's on borrowed time right now. You know, the knives are out.
Yes. Definitely. I mean, the headlines this morning, PM labelled gullible and weak over Mandelson. That's in the Times. And let's not forget, the Times has been one of the greatest supporters of Keir Starmer over the course of the last year or so. Rayner, I'm ready to go, says the Daily Mail, as Starmer fights for his political life and MPs line up to warn that either he or his chief aide has to quit. Ex-deputy leader tells friends she is primed to strike. Sun's got anger at Prime Minister's sorry excuse. I mean, it was pretty awful yesterday, wasn't it?
And it was only a couple of weeks ago that Starmer was saying, well, I'll definitely be here in the next year, 2027. At that point, he couldn't even say he'd be here for the next election. Yeah. But he said, I will be here next year. Now we're not sure if he's actually going to make the week.
No, exactly right.
It's quite remarkable.
It is remarkable how quickly these things turn, isn't it? We've got a poll out, by the way, just because we want to be joining in the fun. And it says, who will be the next Prime Minister, OK? Tax dodger. See if you can figure out who all these people are. Mastermind, Mad Millipede, and Wes Streeting, who I'm afraid is so boring that he doesn't even have a nickname. At the moment, it looks like tax dodger, obviously Angela Rayner, is leading in the poll. 54% of people think she's actually got what it takes to be the... Can you imagine Angela Rayner as Prime Minister?
I'd rather not, but not at this time in the morning especially. But no, absolutely. And look, the point is, of course, she would be first out of the starting blocks. Did she not have this huge millstone around her neck of her HMRC? Right. I mean, what a motley crew, though. Can you imagine that is their selection? I think we can just discount Calamity Lammy, David Mastermind Lammy, because his performance at PMQs is really, I think,
puts him out of the dreadful, isn't it? He's so awful.
Absolutely dire. Yeah. But the rest of them, I mean, you've got the Millipede there, who, of course, we all remember from the Ed Stone and unable to eat a sandwich without making a fool of himself. Yeah. And then we've got Wes Streeting, a man who basically disappears into the wallpaper every time you see him.
And also who has made a complete sort of hash of fixing the NHS. The NHS, if anything, has got worse since he's been in charge of it. If anything, and they've also told a load of lies about it. It was only, last week we discovered that they've been doing what I've been accusing them of doing for ages, which is removing people's names from waiting lists in order to make it look as if the waiting lists are coming down. But they're just literally getting people's names off the list.
Disgraceful, yeah, and just finding out the dead people, trying to remove them over there as well. I mean, it's all smoke and mirrors, rearranging the deck chair on the Titanic. Wes Streeting, of course, also long-standing friend and ally of Peter Mandelson as well.
Well, they all are.
It has to be said.
The thing that really galls me is the fact that they are all, kind of falling over themselves now to say, he's let us down, he's tricked us, it was terrible. As if they had no clue that this man was one of the most seedy and despicable characters in politics and has been for a long time.
He's the oleaginous master of the dark arts. Yeah. He's long well known as the Svengali of the Labour Party. So obviously many people, there's a great deal of schadenfreude that he's finally gone. What I think is telling, though, is that there's talk about having a group of women go to Starmer to basically talk to him in the same way a group of chaps went to Margaret Thatcher.
Right. The men in the grey suits.
Thatcher had been around for 11 years. He's been there barely 11 months.
Also, is the theory behind that he's frightened of women and that's why they're going to send a load of women, because he doesn't really know, because he doesn't know how to talk to women, does he? He's clearly very uncomfortable around women.
He's frightened by women, and also, of course, this is all about women, this story, the victims and so forth, so there's added pressure there. And, of course, he's liked to, in the past, puts himself up as being a champion of women's rights and so forth.
Right.
Well, of course.
Even though he doesn't know what a woman is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You can't identify one, but I will stand up for you.
Look, there's a bloke with a penis. No, sorry, that's a woman. Definitely a woman.
Excuse me, sir, are you a woman?
Yeah. Excuse me. Do you dress to the left? Front page of the Telegraph attaches your story to Angela Rayner. It says, Rayner tilt at number 10 hit by tax inquiry. Former Deputy Prime Minister could have to wait for this HMRC investigation if Starmer actually quits. So she's not actually technically ready, because you can't nominate somebody to be Prime Minister if they're likely to be sort of charged with some tax dodge, can you?
That's right. You're talking about going from the frying pan into the fire with another story on the front pages. You don't want to go back into another scandal, but
no.
Quite clearly, we know that she is actually raising money at the moment. She can't raise money for a fundraiser for a campaign,
right,
but she's raising money for staff purposes. But yes, I imagine
maybe it's the crowdfunder for the next stamp duty bill that she's going to get. Because she's never quite sure how much of that she's going to have to pay out. Let's have a look though, and go back, because I wanted to play this yesterday. We didn't have it, but we have it today. This is when Keir Starmer went over to Washington DC after Mandelson had been appointed, when he went to go and see Donald Trump. And he was very sort of complimentary and almost greasy around this introduction of Peter Mandelson. Have a look.
Already I can feel there's a real buzz around Washington right now. You can sense that there's a new leader in town, that he's a true one-off, a pioneer in business and in politics. Many people love him. Others love to hate him. But to us, he's just Peter. And Peter is the right person to help us work with President Trump and to take this special relationship from strength to strength.
There's nothing worse than Keir Starmer trying to make a joke and showing himself to be so pleased with himself. And there he was, basically lauding Mandelson up to the high heavens and saying, some people love to hate him, but we know him as Peter. And I just think, that's not the same guy who's now telling me that he was duped by this horrible, ghastly, double-dealing liar. Right? I mean, presumably next he's going to say, I also sent £100 million to King John Goodenough in Nigeria because he asked me to by sending me an email. And I've also bought a second-hand car from a bloke and doesn't have an engine. I mean, how stupid is this guy?
Well, that stupid is the word for it. Firstly, of course, can you imagine, knowing, of course, as he knew that Mandelson kept up a relationship with Epstein, that you wouldn't actually ask the Department of Justice in America, excuse me, what does actually the files hold on Mandelson? That should be such a basic part of any vetting of this guy.
Of course.
Never asked that. There were concerns by the security services, that was set aside. There were concerns from civil servants, those were ignored. You had disquiet from former Prime Minister Gordon Brown. He brushed aside all of that. He ignored those alarm bells, and he put this tainted figure at the heart of our most important diplomatic relationship. This is not a misstep by Starmer. This is part of a pattern of misjudgments, political miscalculation, a lack of instinct. This is a person who said, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have done it. I'm sorry, Prime Minister, that is not leadership. Leadership is not doing things in hindsight. It's doing things with foresight.
Exactly.
He lacks all of that. He cannot continue to be Prime Minister because he's causing incalculable and irreparable harm. Some of it deliberate, like China and the Chagos. Others through incompetence and lack of acumen. And this is a time, of course, when we're facing an existential crisis in this country. Britain is really a broken nation in a perilous state. This is a time when we need a real leader up to the challenge, not someone like this nincompoop.
Right, and when Starmer got up in the Commons the other day to admit that he knew that the Epstein relationship had gone on for longer than Mandelson had originally suggested, at what point did that not change his view? Because he still managed to promote the guy, still managed to give him the job, even knowing that, right? I mean, there's a story in the paper today, the Sun's got it and the Mail have got it as well, that back in 2010, Lord Mandelson tried to organise a tour of Downing Street for a Russian model at Jeffrey Epstein's request. Now, are you telling me there's no record of that? That there's nobody in Downing Street who could have told Starmer this is one of the things that he did? So if you allow him back into the inner circle, he's going to be escorting models around the inner workings of government. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Look, this is, a far bigger scandal than Partygate. Much bigger than that. And we know, of course, how Labour were like Rottweilers, refusing to let go. If this man had any shred of decency and dignity, he would say, right, I can't be a hypocrite and I must go. But of course, that's far beyond his abilities.
Yeah, exactly right. Shall we have a look? I know this is quite a long clip, Pooch, and I don't know whether you've had a chance to edit it, but the Starmer apology from yesterday, because I think this also sums up, as Rafe says, his complete and utter inadequacy as a leader. Because watching this on the news yesterday afternoon, I couldn't quite believe my eyes. I was like, is this really what stands for the Prime Minister of this great country of ours? Have we really fallen so far that this bozo is in charge of our country? Have a look.
Let me be clear. No one is above accountability. And no one, however well connected, however experienced, however senior, should hold public office if they cannot meet the basic test of honesty. I also want to address the publication of the information Mandelson provided during the appointment process. I understand the strength of public feeling. I share the anger that people feel when powerful individuals appear to escape scrutiny. And I want to be able to release those documents as quickly as possible. I wanted to release them yesterday, in fact, and to talk about them at Prime Minister's questions. But the police have advised that releasing certain information now could risk prejudicing a future investigation or legal process. And however frustrating from my personal point of view that is, and it is, I will not take any step, however politically tempting, however popular, that risks justice for victims. Because this is not and must never become a political game. The victims of Epstein have lived with trauma that most of us can barely comprehend. And they've had to relive it again and again. They have seen accountability delayed and too often denied. To them, I want to say this. I am sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry as well. We're all bloody sorry because you're a complete and utter plank. I mean, it's hard to believe that he's somehow, I mean, apart from anything else, and I know this people will say this is trivial, I hate that, dark blue shirt and dark jacket look. It looks ridiculous. And you know that somebody's told him in the sort of, Downing Street image department, oh, you'll look more like a man down to earth if you wear that kind of outfit, Wear a bloody shirt and tie. You're the Prime Minister of Great Britain. Yeah. Look the part, you complete plonker, right? and again, he's also now blaming the police. Here's what happened, right? And I'm sure of this. He goes to the police and says, would you mind issuing a statement, please, to say you shouldn't release any documents, otherwise it will prejudice an inquiry. Because everybody knows it's complete rubbish. You cannot prejudice an inquiry, you cannot prejudice a police investigation before they've even looked into anything and before they've even charged anybody.
Yeah, it's not like this is a court case where, of course, you have to keep quiet. I don't even think we should be keeping quiet about court cases. They don't do that in America.
No, of course not.
Here. But there's no justification at all for not releasing all this information. We need to know this stuff urgently. We need full transparency. That's the problem. Even now, at this late stage, even now of everything, they're still trying to do a cover-up. This is what sticks in the core of the British public.
Right.
We've had enough of these cover-ups. We need to see who made these decisions, why wasn't the Department of Justice contacted, and why on earth did he make these decisions, ignoring the security services, ignoring the civil service, ignoring Gordon Brown. I think this is the moment for the British people to look at their government and say, enough is enough.
Enough is enough, yeah. You don't know what you're doing, and it's very obvious that you don't know what you're doing. You've been caught out, you're caught with your fingers in the till. Anybody you could talk to on the streets of London, if you walked out right now at 7:14 in the morning and say, what do you think of Peter Mandelson? They'd go, he's a crook, he's a liar, and he's a scumbag, he's a sleazeball. Everybody knows that, apart from apparently Keir Starmer, who's shocked by the fact that he's discovered he's a liar.
And they'd have said he was a crook and a liar every year for the last 20 years. That's the thing, right? This is what gets everyone. I think, look, now even Labour loyalists know that Keir Starmer has completely lost control of the country. He's lost all moral authority.
Yeah.
He's lost everyone's trust. He is on borrowed time.
Yeah.
This is a question of whether he's going to make it to the May elections or whether he'll go before the elections,
Yeah.
because he definitely won't be here come my birthday in June.
No, I don't think he will be. And I mean, but obviously he's also setting himself up to make this what he would like it to be, which is a long, drawn-out, sort of process, which means that he hopes everyone will have forgotten about it by the time these papers become released. He's actually said there, this is frustrating for me because it's only because the police have told me that I can't release the documents. I wanted to release them at Prime Minister's questions, but the police told me not to. Absolute cobblers.
Yeah, it's absolute nonsense. He's just trying to make excuses for all of this. And I think the sooner we see the back of him, the sooner this nation can carry on with the great duties of the day, because there are so many issues facing us. And right now, I don't see any end to this storm. Remember also, we have 3 million papers from the Epstein files. That's twice the height of the Eiffel Tower. Stuff is going to be dripping day by day over the next days, weeks, months ahead. Who knows how much more stuff there is to come about Mandelson in the months ahead. Yeah. This is going to be a cloud that doesn't go away.
Right, exactly right. Somebody just put up a message there, I don't know if we can get it back, about your latest video on the New Culture Forum. Somebody giving you out. Rafe's latest video for New Culture Forum is Great Britain deserves better leaders, says Home Thoughts. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, basically I'm saying much the same things that I'm saying today. We deserve better.
Yes.
We expect better. We need better. A leader should exude strength, self-confidence, and assertiveness. Yeah. And we have a prime minister who is indecisive, who lacks judgment, and no one can tell me that Russia, China, India, and America look at Starmer and they don't see somebody who is docile, submissive, and absolutely feeble.
And easy to push around, basically, And that is part of the problem. And that's what Trump sees. It's what the Europeans see. It's what the Chinese see. It's what Putin sees. Everybody can see it. The guy is completely useless. But he's also surrounded by a collection of useless individuals, one of whom is Steve Reed, the former head of Lambeth Council, right? He was on Good Morning Britain yesterday and was getting quite churlish because he didn't like being asked questions. Have a look.
The key question that many people are asking this morning is this. Setting aside Mandelson's undoubted lies during the vetting process, wasn't enough already known about his relationship with Epstein to comprehensively disbar him from such an important job?
It's easy, isn't it, with hindsight, when you do know the truth, to look back at a time when that was not
hindsight.
When
Mandelson
was appointed to this
based on what was
you're asking me
already
questions,
known.
But you're not actually letting me answer.
No, but because you've misinterpreted.
What's the point asking me a question
because you've misinterpreted my
it?
question, sir. The question was this.
No, well, you're not listening to what I'm saying. If I haven't even answered it, how do you know I've misinterpreted it?
Because of your opening statement. You talked about hindsight. What I was saying was that the information that was in possession of the government and of the Prime Minister, setting aside Mandelson's lies during the vetting process, wasn't that information sufficient to disbar him from being given such an important job?
I know you're saying that because you've got the benefit of hindsight, but at the time, no, it wasn't. There was a process that was gone through. Mandelson lied. The process includes the security forces. Nothing additional was thrown up at the time to make it clear that Mandelson was lying, and so he was appointed. Everyone regrets that now, of course, but as soon as the truth came to light, with that first release of files from the United States months ago, the Prime Minister took immediate and decisive action. He phoned him up at 5 a.m. in the morning and sacked him on the spot as the UK's ambassador to the United States. Now further information has come to light over recent days, and the Prime Minister has taken further action, spoken to the King to remove Peter Mandelson from the Privy Council, and has announced that we are going to change the law to strip him of his title of a Lord. Every time a new information has come to light, the Prime Minister has acted. But he regrets, we all regret, that Mandelson was ever appointed, but that happened because the vetting process did not demonstrate what was really going on.
I mean, what's the point of a vetting process, right? That's Steve Reed there basically saying, oh yeah, it's all very well to say with the benefit of hindsight that we shouldn't have given him the job. But as Richard Maley pointed out there, but it's not hindsight because it was all in the public domain. Everybody knew that his friendship with Epstein was going to be a problem. And he's basically saying, oh, when new information came to light, the Prime Minister acted. Well, no. I mean, what is the point of having a vetting process if you're not vetting anyone?
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but there's this great new high-tech platform out there that the MI5 like to use. It's called Google. And it's just wonderful. Someone should really tell number 10 about this, you know? But yeah, look, as I said, I think it's unimaginable that knowing about the Epstein files, you wouldn't have actually contacted the Department of Justice and said, look, what do you hold on Peter Mandelson?
Yes.
And that information would have been forthcoming.
Right.
And they would have had even all the new revelations. But you didn't even need the new revelations. We knew exactly what was going on with Peter Mandelson. And let's just remember, this is a man who had to resign from high office in scandal, not once, but twice.
Yes.
You knew what you were getting with him. This was a gamble.
And it was always about money as well, wasn't it?
It was financial and it was sexual. Well, now we know it was sexual. But the point is here, right, from the very beginning, this was a reckless gamble. This was basically Keir Starmer going to Las Vegas and betting the house.
Yes.
And of course, it's come up black when he put it on red.
Yes.
He thought Trump is a loose cannon. He'll get on with this. Maybe they've got something in common about Epstein they can chat about.
Yeah.
But
I've heard that argument actually being made by Labour apparatchiks. I don't buy it, by the way. I don't think that they're clever enough to think that way. That's far too Machiavellian, I think.
But look, I think it's now, the Labour Party, they've always been very loyal to their prime ministers. Never in history has a Labour prime minister been directly ousted by the party.
Right.
But we do have the most unpopular Labour prime minister ever, the most unpopular prime minister in recorded history, dare I say the most loathed prime minister ever. So I think this could be the occasion now where if he doesn't go, he will be ousted by the Labour Party.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. Dat says this, the vetting process now is, do you want the job? And this will keep your mouth shut about everything else. I mean, that seems to be the way it's been going. But yeah, I mean, why didn't any Labour MPs complain about Mandelson's appointment, says Red Black? Yeah, very good point. They were all more than happy to re-employ the Prince of Darkness, as he was known, the Dark Lord. They were all really happy to do it. And the idea that they're all now standing around, like somebody who's just spotted the Emperor's not wearing any clothes going, oh, he's a liar. He lied to us. It's all down to him. He's betrayed us. It's complete and utter madness. Complete and utter nonsense. But, they are all now fighting like rats in a sack. And the trouble for the country, I think, is that whoever does come next, it will probably be worse.
Yeah, well, it's probably going to, for someone like Angela Rayner, it's going to tax even more to the left now, of course, and we know the unions will be even stronger than they have been under Starmer. If we have Miliband, basically you may as well just basically say, well, the last person out of the country, turn the lights off.
Well, there won't be any lights.
There won't be any lights at all, actually. Never mind, sit in the dark and light a candle.
Can you put a coin in the meter, please? No, I'm sorry, we haven't got any money. Because Rachel Reeves is in the news again this morning because the Sun and the Mail have both got the Bank of England yet again. I don't know how much more we can downgrade the growth forecast of this country, but the Bank of England has downgraded its growth forecast yet again, giving a bleak outlook for workers, saying that the economy is expected to be weaker than predicted for the next 2 years.
And that's the thing, we've had a Prime Minister who's presided over a conveyor belt of bad policy decisions and everything else. That's why I say Mandelson is just a symptom of a deeper malaise here. Interesting, of course, no one is putting any bets on our Rachel from Customer Complaints as being a contender to replace
Certainly
Keir
not.
Starmer.
But in fact, if you saw her face during Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, she looked for all the world like she was next to go, because she knows if he goes, she's gone. She's out, right?
Well, yeah, she only has one role, and that's to basically cover him from any attacks.
Yes, exactly right. The freeze in income tax thresholds will limit the support to household spending, says the bank. They held interest rates at 3.75% yesterday, but said it is likely they will be cutting them in coming months in a boost for households. It's not really a boost for anybody when they cut interest rates anymore, is it? Because the cost of everything is going up, and interest rates really don't affect that.
That's right, yeah. I can't see any benefit to it whatsoever.
No. Something that I know is close to your heart, you've talked about it before, Westminster Palace, the Palace of Westminster, and the renovation of it, which has apparently been talked about for probably a good decade. According to a piece in the Times today, renovation of the Palace of Westminster will cost every taxpayer more than £1,000 and take 60 years to finish if MPs refuse to leave the place and let the work go on while they're not there.
It's really annoying. Yeah, £40 billion and 61 years potentially if everyone is decanted out of Parliament. This really annoys me. As a historian, as someone who loves architecture. This is one of the world's great buildings.
It is.
And every government for the last, 30 years has refused to take action when it could have cost a pittance. It could have cost a fraction of what's going to cost now. Nobody wants to be seen to be spending money on their own property. It looks bad with taxpayers. But the more you kick the can down the road, the more expensive things are. This could have been done for much less money, would have taken much less time to do it, and now we found ourselves in this position. I remember under Theresa May this was supposed to be done.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And it still hasn't been done. And yeah, it does mean that potentially they would have to decant. I used to live in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, which is a very similar parliament buildings. They completely decanted. So they're actually outside of the physical building, and that's a 20-year project. These things are expensive, but if you do like the Palace of Westminster, it does need to stand. And even if there wasn't, because a lot of people say, well, just get rid of them, make it into a museum. Well, even if it was a museum, it would still need to be renovated.
And the thing is, it's a magnificent building. For those of you who haven't been inside it, I mean, the public areas where you can go when you walk through the Great Hall, where Cromwell addressed everybody, where countless presidents of the United States and other world leaders have been, where there's been some magnificent sort of events over the centuries. And most of the public areas are as I say, beautiful, magnificent and fantastic with statues everywhere. But an awful lot of the working spaces are actually in terrible, dilapidated state, aren't they?
Oh, yes. No, I mean, Westminster Hall is, I would say, the most important room in Europe historically for what's happened there. Every time you walk in there, you can feel the weight of history on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And the grand room, the House of Lords, the robing room, that's fantastic, yes. But then you go down a couple of corridors, turn left twice, and you've got the mice, you've got the leaking ceiling, stones are falling off all over the place. And you see some MPs' offices, and they're up in the belfry in really substandard conditions too. So yeah, it's not the best look.
No, it really isn't. Let's have a look at the royals, because you did an interview, I think, yesterday with one of the top royal authors in which you were talking about Andrew, because one of the things that's happened, I suppose, this week over all of this commotion around Peter Mandelson is that Andrew's kind of star has kind of waned slightly, if you like. His name is no longer on the front pages quite as much, but there's still an awful lot to come out about him, isn't there?
Yeah, and we only have the tip of the iceberg so far. But yes, so I was in the rare position of being a royal historian asking another royal historian questions for a change, rather than asking them. Andrew Lowry coming up with some interesting things. Of course, we have the latest revelation. I mean, Andrew must be delighted, of course, that Manson's taking some attention away.
Yeah.
But of course, he didn't expect to be back in the spotlight at all. We thought he was going off into oblivion in Sandringham.
Right.
But apparently, of course, we know that Epstein and Andrew potentially were trying to have a threesome with an exotic dancer at a party at which most of the girls there seemed to be about 14 years of age as well. But there were some amazing things. Andrew Lanley was telling me that, Andrew apparently had 40 prostitutes in 4 days.
This is in Thailand.
Thailand.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, some amazing sort of stories here. But also the involvement of Sarah Ferguson, of course, who up to this point hasn't been that involved. The newest tranche. I mean, he was alleging that, she was taking money, perhaps as much as £2 million here, whereas before we thought there was just a few thousand here and a few thousand there. Actually spending so much time living in Epstein's properties, making him pay the first-class tickets. There's no way that she couldn't have known something fishy was going on.
Of course.
You can't be in that environment for so long. Pictures of naked girls on the wall, prophylactics lying around. I don't know how early in the morning you can say condoms, but
I think some people are still up in this area anyway. So don't worry about it.
You're going to a global audience. It's after the watershed somewhere in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, that's the other thing. There was a ski lodge, wasn't there, that was involved in this, where Andrew and Fergie had somehow got themselves a ski lodge in Switzerland or something, which was allegedly bankrolled completely by Epstein, for a few million quid.
And the shocking thing here, of course, is the revelation that sex-trafficked women were actually brought into royal residences.
Yes.
Because therefore, you brought into Royal Lodge, we know that. Andrew Lowry says prostitutes were also brought into Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
This girl who alleges that she was assaulted in the same way that Virginia Giuffre was given a tour of Buckingham Palace. But this suddenly means that if there is a criminal investigation into Andrew for misconduct and sex trafficking, suddenly the royal residence has now become part of this criminal investigation. I mean, this is absolutely amazing stuff. I said for yesterday as well, I think this is the biggest political scandal of modern times.
I think so.
Everyone says it's the biggest thing since Profumo in '63.
Yeah.
I think this is much bigger than Profumo.
So too.
I actually think it's bigger than the abdication crisis of 1936 when King Edward VIII stepped down, became the Duke of Windsor. So this is really monumental stuff. We think of those things as being amazingly big events. We're living through even more amazing times right now because, of course, it's not just British politics, it's the British monarchy, but then you've got Richard Branson, you've got the Clintons, you've got Bill Gates, now even Woody Allen is in a photograph.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely remarkable.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? And the other thing about the involvement of the royal family is that, it's only literally a very small step to Queen Elizabeth II, who obviously gave Andrew money to pay off somebody, which has been now beginning to look like a very bad idea indeed. You've got the King, who was out and about, and I think we've got some footage of it actually yesterday, out and about yesterday in Essex. He was heckled by members of the public because of Andrew. Check this out.
Are you all dead and resident?
Yes, I lived it.
Charles! Charles! Have you pressurised the police into not investigating Andrew?
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
If you don't think these people need justice, well, it is. Because this is the only way to make it clear to people that Andrew should not be...
And there we are, in the land of free speech, the police telling an old man, you can't shout at the King like that. That's not very nice. He's basically just saying, don't you think that, you should be helping the police with their inquiries effectively? Because, again, King Charles is going to be accused by some people, not necessarily by me, of being sort of complicit in a kind of royal cover-up. Because if you're either helping the police with their inquiries or you're not.
Well, for me, I don't think there's much more the King could have done personally on any of this. But yes, I mean, this is the reason why, of course, he's now quickly been... why Andrew's quickly been carted off to Sandringham. He didn't expect to be leaving. He thought he'd still be living in Royal Lodge now. In the middle of the night, he was taken away because the damage is clear to be seen. You'll remember it was a few weeks ago that His Majesty was also heckled in another walkabout, and they've realised now the damage is actually reaching into the very, very front door of the royal family, and steps need to be taken. Look, I mean, the thing is, he's now going to be living in Sandringham, Prince Andrew, supposedly out of sight. There's questions as to whether he's actually going to stay in the country. I think it's quite easy now to see him going off to the Middle East, going to live. He's got use of a palace in Abu Dhabi. Right. He still has business contacts out there. People in the Middle East and elsewhere, Kazakhstan and so forth, they don't really care about any of this. It's not making headlines there. He's still respected there, regarded very much as a great friend, even as a sort of a distant member of the family. So I could easily see himself going off to sunnier climes to escape all of this, because what is he going to do? Spend the next rest of his life on bleak Norfolk broadlands in January and February when he could be in the sun? Yeah.
What are we going to do today, Your Highness? Well, I suppose I don't call him that anymore. Andy. Well, I thought I'd go out for a ride on the horse. Okay, then. Same as yesterday, then. Yep, absolutely. How about a ride in a Range Rover? Yep, that'll do. I mean, it's just bizarre, isn't it? But here's a question for you. I mean, if they were, say, for example, to be asked by the police to check out something that had happened years and years ago, is there such a thing as CCTV footage of who's going in and out of Buckingham Palace, going all the way back to whenever this was?
Yeah, well, the question is, how long do they keep records for? I mean, I don't think anyone keeps CCTV. I don't know, maybe these days they do. It didn't used to be the case that you would keep things for more than a few months before riding over. But there are logs. I mean, this is one of the problems we have here, because Andrew was allegedly bringing prostitutes into the palace without giving their names. And this was causing great concern to the security outside Buckingham Palace, because they didn't know who these people were that he was bringing into the palace, which obviously is a highly secure area.
And presumably he wouldn't tell them, and they couldn't ask him, because he would just be, dismissive and say, "How dare you even ask who this is?" It's really, really weird, isn't it? A couple of things away from the scandal. This one from Woody Allen. I can't see him cheating on his daughter. I mean, we're laughing, but it is absolutely quite incredible, isn't it? What some of the stuff that's been going on, and these people. I mean, I used to say this to friends of mine whenever there'd be some kind of sex scandal. You always used to say, "When do these people find the time? Have they got nothing else to do than to basically trawl around, having sort of what can only be described as rather unusual sex with loads and loads of people? I mean, haven't they got anything better to do?"
Well, that's why I really enjoyed Elon Musk's response to Epstein. Epstein said, we've got, there's a UN General Assembly coming into New York. There'll be lots of interesting people coming over, meaning there'll be lots of young girls coming over. And Elon Musk, being so naive, said, "Oh, that's not a very good use of my time. I'm trying to launch this thing and launch this thing. I don't need to meet with diplomats."
Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right. We have a poll today, by the way. If you haven't seen it yet, please go onto our YouTube chat and find it. It is, who will be the next Prime Minister? It's a simple enough question, but the answers actually are rather more revealing than the question. Tax dodger, number 1. Mastermind, number 2. Mad Millipede, number 3. And Wes Streeting, number 4. The only one who has his real name there because he's too boring to have a nickname. So far I can reveal that the tax dodger, Angela Rayner, is leading with 51%. Mad Millipede, 27%. Mastermind with 11 shares it with Wes Streeting. Any one of those 4 people would be an absolute bleeding disaster for the country. Let's talk about another big story on the front pages this morning, Rafe. On the front page of the Telegraph, Bradford NHS recruits a nurse to help cousin marriage families. This is an amazing story. Hospital trust worker has been hired to support close relative parents despite calls to ban the practice.
Yeah, I mean, this is insane. We should be calling out cousin marriage for what it is. We should be. I mean, it's amazingly, it's still law in this country. You can marry your cousins.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be. This was King Henry VIII brought this in to basically facilitate his own affairs. But look, over 55% of British Pakistanis are married to first cousins. Bradford actually has the highest level. I think it's up to 60% in Bradford. And even though Pakistani births are only about 3.4% of national births, they account for almost 30% of children born with genetic disorders in this country.
Right.
This is not something we should be encouraging. And yet, of course, what we have from Labour and Labour's acolytes are defences of cousin marriages being somehow a good way to preserve money and unity within the family. Now you've got stuff like this terrible story about having NHS nurses being there to facilitate all of this. You've had outrageous defences of cousin marriage from some of these Muslim votes, sectarian MPs in Parliament. It's time that we took a stand for British values and said, look, this is a reprehensible practice. It's barbaric. It's absolutely appalling for these children. But also, it's costing us the taxpayer money. 30% of all the birth defects that were in the NHS, we're paying for ourselves.
Yeah.
Now we're paying for this nurse here. We need to just stamp this
and
out.
It's as a result of these kind of apologists for what I would call kind of backward practices from other parts of the world, which we shouldn't be adopting. I mean, Richard Holden is a guy who's actually been standing up against this for quite some time. Shadow Transport Secretary. He's introduced proposals to outlaw the practice back in 2024 when he was a backbench MP. Downing Street, however, says it's got no plans to outlaw the practice. Because again, the Downing Street apparatchiks and Keir Starmer and all his Islamic apologists are all dead scared of upsetting the Muslim vote again.
But this is what gets me. I mean, think about how many hours have been spent over the last few weeks with the story of Epstein and women's rights and the poor victims of Epstein and so forth. Yeah, what happened to them was terrible, obviously, absolutely appalling. But of course, that pales in comparison to the treatments meted out to the grooming gang victims.
Yeah.
They weren't getting afternoon tea and tours of Buckingham Palace afterwards, right? The rampant misogyny in parts of the Islamic community, particularly in the segregated areas, the cousin marriage, the child marriage, the forced marriage, the sexual aggression, the misogyny, the domestic abuse, and none of that is spoken about by these hypocrites who now, of course, now that it's an elite story, now they can get on the bandwagon and the feminists can come out and talk about this. Well, where was Jess Phillips about any of this other these stories? Where's Jess Phillips talking about the children? You know, she's Minister for Safeguarding Women and so forth, yet she's mysteriously silent on all of these issues when it relates to the Islamic vote, of course, because for lots of these MPs, their majority rests upon the Muslim vote, because they've only got a few hundred votes in it.
Well, exactly right. I mean, look at this statistic in the Telegraph piece. In 3 inner-city Bradford wards, almost half, that's 46% of mothers from the Pakistani community, were married to a first or second cousin. This is according to Born in Bradford data published 3 years ago. And that was based on 13,500 babies born between 2007 and 2011. That's a staggering statistic, isn't it?
Well, as far as I'm aware, 60% of couples in Bradford are actually in consanguineous relations.
Yes. It is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. A couple of other stories quickly to get to before we let you go. This won't surprise you. Time story on page 11. Gen Z can't make friends with people who have different views to them.
Yeah, well, of course, this is the first generation to be born into the smartphone era, right? And everything has become polarised. Of course, we know from all the polling that people on the left tend to be the ones who are most reluctant to have friendships or any connection with people with opposing viewpoints. And despite what some people may think, we still have the most radically left-wing youth in history. Yes, there's a small number who are voting for reform now, but the majority of Gen Z are actually left-leaning, and they basically have completely othered the other side.
Yes.
And you see it in all the evidence, both here and in America. If you ask somebody how they would feel if one of their family members was a Trump voter or voted for Brexit, they wouldn't have it at all.
No.
They can't tolerate any of that. And it's a terrible shame because, of course, you've got the echo chambers that they're living in. They exist with a curated algorithm. So their entire mindset and worldview has been created for them by Meta, by Facebook, by X,
Yes.
by Instagram.
Right.
And they're not aware, actually, that their entire worldview has been shaped by an algorithm.
Yes, it is extraordinary. I mean, I had a similar kind of experience growing up, I suppose, because I grew up in as a Catholic. My mother was a Catholic, my father was a Protestant. But I was an altar boy, I went to Catholic school, I went to Catholic primary school, I went to Catholic secondary school, grammar school. When I finally kind of broke out of it to go to FE college to do my A-levels, I suddenly realised there were people in the world who weren't Catholics. Because at first I thought, well, that was it. And I mean, there was no internet then either. So suddenly I realised, one, there were people, I always knew there were people with different views. But, you know, if you live in this bubble, which is what these people now do, something like, what is it, more than 37% of 16 to 24-year-olds admit to finding it hard to be friends with those with opposing viewpoints. If you just stay in a bubble all your life, you know, you're never going to learn anything.
That's right. I mean, luckily, I have a broad group of friends, and so I'm always very glad that on, say, my Facebook news feed, I'm always getting counterpoints, people posting their own content.
Yeah.
Because even we have to check ourselves, and we're in this world, and many of our viewers as well. You know, when you're so politically interested, it's very difficult. And I don't see any left-wing content. The algorithm doesn't show me anything that doesn't suit my own political flavour. But of course, we're old enough to actually have other ways of finding these things out.
Yes.
For youngsters, that's not the case. It's TikTok, it's Snapchat. And I think it's deeply damaging for our society because we are going to actually end up being some sort of nation of Eloys and Morlocks, you know, people just existing completely separate lives from one another.
That's true. And then that sort of leads on to the final story of the day. A Cornish village has been without the internet for 3 weeks, and apparently it's been wreaking havoc for people, even older people, because everybody's become so reliant on it. And believe it or not, there's a picture there. Helford is the name of the place. They've had to use an old-fashioned telephone box to actually ring people up and talk to them. And some of the people that I've seen interviewed were saying things like, you know, even many of the old people in the town now don't have a landline. And so they're not able to talk to anyone.
Well, this is memories of the 1970s, right? When you all had to go down to the phone box to make a call.
I'm amazed they've even got a phone box.
They should have a party line set up as well for people to... But maybe this is the solution, actually, to the issue of Gen Z. You know, banning smartphones, for example, keeping them off the internet until they're 16.
Yes.
So they can actually escape the dependence on the internet as they are. But, you know, Cornwall, at the best of times, has bad connections. I've been to Devon and Cornwall and had a very, very difficult time getting through. The state of the internet in this country is actually something to be ashamed about, given that we are supposed to be one of the world's G7 nations. Our internet speeds, Boris Johnson promised us a lot more on that sort of front. We need to get more connectivity, especially as we go into AI, if we're going to remain a global player. And places like, you know, there's been a huge amount of white flight from the cities to Devon and Cornwall.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons the house prices have gone up. There's a huge amount of professionals now living there. They can't exist if they have substandard internet.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I remember going down, I used to go to Corfe Castle quite a bit a few years ago. I had a friend who had a house down there. And you used to have to walk to the sort of top of the high street and hold your phone up in the air to get an email, you know. And I mean, that was just about 3 or 4 years ago. And I don't think it's any better now. And I remember David Cameron. Do you remember David Cameron promising us 5G everywhere in Britain? You know, and that was probably back in, 2012, 13? And we still haven't got it.
And we're the country, of course, that invented the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
Just like our railway. We invent everything and then we just basically do nothing about it.
Literally everywhere else in the world that I've gone, the internet is better than here.
Yeah.
You know, I was in Montenegro, it was great. I was in Cyprus, it was great. America, obviously really good. If you drive down to Sussex, as I do most weekends, as soon as you get anywhere south of Tunbridge Wells, that's it. There's no DAB. You can't listen to any radio stations apart from the BBC, and there's no phone signal.
But this is what's so indefensible, you know. Our infrastructure in this country is so behind the times, and we talk about economic growth. You can't have economic growth if people aren't able to actually have connectivity and work. And it's a scandal that in the 21st century, 2026 now, you still can't get spotty Wi-Fi on trains. Why aren't trains completely connected? People spend 3-4 hours on a train. There's valuable working time. Even on the underground now, they're just bringing it in now, whereas other places have had it for years.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're lucky if you can get a train that's actually moving, if you want to actually go anywhere. Rafe Heidelberg-Koo, great to see you. New Culture Forum, of course. Find him on, tell us where we can find you if we need to find your beautiful words.
Do subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rafe Heidelberg-Koo. Follow me on X and everywhere else, very easy.
Excellent stuff. And I think I'm seeing you next week, aren't I? There's some kind of New Culture Forum.
Oh, yes, we'll have our book launch. Details to come. Yes.
Details to follow. Yeah, absolutely right. Well, hopefully we'll see you next time, same time next week, next Friday. We're talking about all sorts of stories around and about the front pages today. Still very much dominated by the hapless Keir Starmer and whether or not he's actually going to be able to still remain as Prime Minister for any longer than about 24 hours. Starmer would have hired Harold Shipman as Health Secretary and then said, I didn't realise he was a bad person for the job, says Jeff. Yeah, that's not a bad shout, actually. Well, this is it. It's almost like he's going to come out and announce, that, as I said earlier, that King John Goodfellow from Nigeria asked me to send him £100 million from the Exchequer. So I did. And I didn't realise it was a scam because I'm so incredibly naive that how can this guy have reached the age that he's reached without getting ripped off by some con man? You know? I didn't know Peter Mandelson was a liar, really. Everybody else did. Anyway, never mind. Kelvin McKenzie's coming up very shortly. First, though, let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. It's Friday the 6th of February. I'm Edward Hughes and I like a banana. Oh joy. Another glorious day in Starmer's Britain. Keir's big Renew British Values speech. Completely drowned out by the fact he apparently appointed Peter Mandelson, yes, that Peter Mandelson, as US ambassador, despite the man's charming holiday snaps with Jeffrey Epstein. Slimy Starmer is now out here apologising to victims, calling it all deceit and lies, while Metro screams PM battles for survival and his own MPs sharpen the knives. Truly inspirational leadership. Meanwhile, the economy is doing fantastically. Bank of England just downgraded growth forecasts again, because why give the reincarnation of Richard III an easy day? Inflation's still being stubborn, workers get the usual bleak outlook, and borrowing costs are climbing because who doesn't love a leadership crisis premium? And the weather? Delightful. Southwest England and South Wales have had rain every single day of 2026 so far. Met Office says, no end in sight. Shocking twist, I know. So, yeah, politics imploding, wallets shrinking, and you're probably flooded. Happy Friday, everyone. Really feeling that post-election glow. Who said the grown-ups are back in the room? Please remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
Thank you very much indeed, Edward. We'll be talking to you again, I'm sure, very, very soon indeed. The big stories on the front pages. Prime Minister labelled gullible and weak over Mandelson, page 1 of the Times. Anger at Prime Minister's sorry excuse, a little corner pocket on the Sun. They've decided to go with the bigger story about Wayne Rooney's son being signed by Manchester United. Rayner, I'm ready to go, says the Daily Mail, although she may not be ready to go, according to the Telegraph, because she's still being hit by a tax inquiry into her problematic difficulties with paying tax. She doesn't seem to understand it. Kier in present danger. Even the Daily Mirror thinks that he's in trouble. Starmer in appeal to Labour MPs. And of course, even the I newspaper has got a load of women apparently who are going to go and see Keir Starmer to persuade him to resign. The guy is literally a dead man walking, isn't he not? Let's find out what Kelvin McKenzie thinks, because former editor of The Sun, of course. Kelvin, very good morning to you, sir.
Morning.
Hard to believe this guy, Starmer, didn't know Peter Mandelson was a liar. I mean, I was saying earlier, it's a bit like, he's had one of those emails from Nigeria from, Dr. John Goodfellow saying, please send me £100 million so that I can send it straight back into your bank account. And he goes ahead and does it because he's that bleeding gullible.
Right, and what's amazing is that right up to the implosion over Mandelson, his main calling card was, that I was a director of public prosecutions.
Yes.
Therefore, his entire life was used to listening to people with a closed eye, i.e., actually, I don't really believe you. You are a criminal, and we are going to take you to court. So suddenly, he now says, oh, I was lied to. Right. Well, there are two aspects to that. One is that he was a professional liar spotter, i.e. he was a prosecutor, and they said, I don't believe you, we're coming after you, right? And the second issue is it was a risk. I remember some Scottish politician that they dug up from the Blair years to bring back into government. When he was asked about the appointment, he said, well, it's a risk. And he chose a risk, and it's blown up on him. So, look, even if you were going to be charitable, and I am not charitable towards this mountebank, right? Even if you were going to be charitable, you would say, actually, you fail on both of those rather important counts.
Yes.
And the real issue is that nothing can get done by this government, and particularly by him, if he's to hang around. Because this issue is not going away literally in the next week. It's not a 24-hour jobby. It's not a 5 days on the front page jobby. It is a permanent stain on them in office, but also a day-to-day problem, as every so often something comes up. For instance, the most interesting thing I saw, which I didn't understand, was that in Starmer's Commons speech, which went down like a cup of cold sick, what he said was, after he had been banged up against the wall by Rayner, which is not an attractive thought. Well, I'm not sure. Anyway, then he said, right, then everything electronically. This is the effect of electronically. As the Times reports last night, that means all WhatsApps, all texts, all emails between the wider Labour groupage are now going to be studied and revealed to that Commons Intelligence Select Committee. The issue about that is there is no way that any, supposing, for instance, there were a WhatsApp between, we'll say, Wes Streeting and Mandelson. Mandelson saying, what do you think I should do? And Streeting says, just sit tight, don't say anything, it'll probably blow over.
Yeah.
That would kill Streeting as a potential prime ministerial candidate, but it also might kill him even as an MP. I can see the ripples of this going out sideways, meaning that a lot more people are going to be damaged than just the prime minister. This is a major moment, and I can't even were Starmer to survive. How on earth is he going to have any authority? And who does this play to? This plays to the left. So all the MPs that are coming on, and this is where the BBC is 100% wrong. They are allowing Labour MPs to come on and say, Starmer must go. Actually, totally agree with them. But what they don't say is, what section of the party do you come from? Because they all come from the left and the far left of the party. And they didn't want Starmer in the first place. So the opportunity of kicking him out and bringing in, a Rayner-type character is, excuse me, is fantastic for these people. So they should be saying, the BBC should be saying, we've got far left Labour MP, da-da-da-da-da, on he comes, and on he or she comes, and everybody has a view. Excuse me, I've got that.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, the problem now as well is that he's made that apology yesterday, which was pathetic in and of itself. I'm sorry, for the victims. Somebody's told him, here's a good way to recover the lost ground is to somehow look as if you're sympathetic to the young women who were affected by Epstein's, web of ghastliness. When in fact nothing's changed. Because he could have felt sorry for the victims when he appointed him as ambassador, but he didn't, because he didn't care then. He's also now hiding behind this idea that the police have said don't release any pictures, don't release any files, because it might be prejudicial to our inquiry, which again is complete nonsense.
Yes, right. And let's be honest about it. He's using the victims' statement as a shield against the onslaught of criticism about him. I hadn't thought about myself. Very good point. If that was going to be the point, why, when he was announced, did he say, "Well, I'm appointing Mandelson. Actually, I feel very sorry for the victims, but actually, I feel more sorry for myself.
Yeah.
And therefore, on that basis, I'm afraid I'm going to make him the ambassador." So I'm afraid he's done for on almost every level. And the question might be worth discussing now is, okay, well, if he's not going to be Prime Minister, and let's be honest about it, in 20 days' time, we've got we've got Gorton and Denton.
Yeah.
The effect of this is going to be catastrophic polling for Labour. Labour were like had the 13,000 majority in 24. The reality of it is that the Greens will canter home. Why? They're going to get the Muslims, who represents 30% of that constituency anyway. They will vote to a man and a woman, if the woman is allowed to vote, by the way. Right? And secondly, Labour, disgruntled Labour will vote Green, and even the Lib Dems, who know that they've got no chance, perhaps they'll vote there. So the majority for the Greens is going to be enormous. So I expect Matt Goodwin to lose the Reform candidate, only on the basis of the surge that this will follow. So where does Starmer stand on his previous decision, which was only half an hour ago, which was we won't have Burnham, right? So he looks wrong on that. He's wrong on Mandelson. He's wrong on Burnham. And then we come on May the 6th when he's going to be destroyed in where is he going to be destroyed? Scotland? Be destroyed in Scotland, destroyed in Wales, and destroyed in those counties that he's allowed us to vote in England. So there is no way that there is good news, right? There is no way that he can survive beyond May the 7th. So you might as well get used to the fact that he is literally, in the old phrase, dead man walking.
Yeah.
Actually, I used to work with a news editor at the Sun called Graham Dudman, who fell out of favour, and he was known as a dud man walking. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in.
I remember Graham Dudman. Whatever happened to him? I wonder.
Graham Dudman is now teaching journalism, teaching journalists in Manchester, and I think he's going to. I bumped into him at some do, and he is going to retire soon. He was treated disgracefully by Murdoch in relation to paying public officials.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm in favour of paying public officials because actually the public officials, most of those government departments, prison offices, police, have 1,000,001 PRs. How on earth are you supposed to find out what's actually going on behind these walls unless some kind of money is changing hands? Anyway, if somebody likes to write that down.
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, isn't it incredible, though, that this guy, and as we watched, I mean, you could actually almost watch him sort of defenestrating himself on Wednesday at Prime Minister's Questions. I don't think I've ever seen a man looking so hopelessly out of his depth. Or out of depth. He didn't know really what to do. You could see that he was really in pain as people were heckling him. He didn't understand why they were, why they weren't listening to him. It was almost like, and then you read in the Sun today, and the Mail I think have got it as well, that in 2010, Lord Mandelson tried to organise a tour of Downing Street for a Russian model at Jeffrey Epstein's request. I mean, surely somebody must have known that happened, and somebody must have told Starmer, by the way, he's basically bringing prostitutes and models into Downing Street to give them a look around the old Churchill room, Can
I be honest with you? It won't be the first time, I suspect, that prostitutes have made their way into number 10. And the only reason that Mandelson took him round was because I wasn't available. But I think that everybody knew, and it became more urgent for Mandelson to have good friendships with Epstein because he knew in 2009 that Labour were never going to win that election, the 2010 election. Therefore, he was going to need money, and the only bloke he probably knew who was as corrupt as him was Epstein. Yeah. So this was always going to end in tears. But the question is, have you noticed how quiet Tony Blair's been?
Yeah.
So Sir Tony, call me Tony. He it was the guy who said my role in life is to make Labour love Mandelson. Now, wouldn't it be incredible if Mandelson ended up destroying Labour? So the great news for the Conservative side of the argument, whether it's Badenoch or Farage in all this, is that longer that this drags on, the more certain we can be that a right groupage, one way or the other, are going to run the country in 3 years' time. But the problem is, it is 3 years' time. So,
well, maybe not though.
So,
see, I've got a theory. I've got a theory that things will deteriorate so quickly once Starmer goes. I mean, we've already got the Bank of England today downgrading yet again. I don't know how many more times they can downgrade their forecast, but, they downgrade yet again the forecast for growth. Next 2 years is going to be an absolute car crash. We're going to run out of money. Rachel Reeves is probably going to go along with Starmer. So God knows who they're going to bring in. They might as well bring in sort of, Olga Corbett to be the Chancellor, to be honest. But I think there will be a massive financial crash and they'll have to have an election. I don't know why I think it, I just think it.
Well, it is certainly true that there have been there has been a similar number of U-turns by the Bank of England as there have been by Starmer. Perhaps that's what keeps that Burke in a job. So if you look at what does the future actually look like, you see, the worst aspect of this discussion is that it means our country is in bad shape.
Yeah.
That's the thing that upsets me most. I actually want our country to do well. I want I especially want the finances to do well, because one of the things I'm concerned about is that you say we're all going to be skinned. I totally get that. However, it will be those who are in state employment who are able to use their leverage, either doctors, railway people, anybody who has leverage, which is something that supplies the public, is going to do fine. And anybody else, you're in private industry and the like, where you've got all kinds of things coming at you. For instance, what about the young? What about the unemployment among 16 to 24-year-olds?
Yeah.
I mean, did you see that stat yesterday, which said that the over 70s are paying more income tax than the under 30s, right? As a groupage.
Yes.
When did that last happen? When was it that the over 70s were either earning more or got their pensions better than the under 30s? It can't have ever happened before.
No.
And honestly, we have got to be concerned about people who don't look like me, right? Unfortunately. And I want to see the young do well. I want to see the country prosper. And that is not possible, as what we have here is wealth being transferred from one group, given to another, i.e. the skint and the dim, right? And that the effect of that is being that those that have the wealth, right, are not investing it. We want people to invest money. We want them to take a risk. And they're not going to take a risk if they're being taxed to hell, both now and in any money that they make in the future. What don't socialists understand? And this is why this is a one-term, disastrous, useless collection of people. And have you noticed that the one name that is never mentioned as Prime Minister of our great country, under all these circumstances, all these half-wits surrounding it, Rachel Reeves.
Yeah.
Nobody says in 1,000 years that the answer to number 10 is Rachel Reeves. Nobody.
No, because it isn't. I mean, I'm not even sure what Rachel Reeves would be the answer to in any question of Trivial Pursuit. Who is the worst Chancellor of the Exchequer in the history of Britain? That might be the only place you'd get an answer for her. But it is absolutely extraordinary. I don't think, you and I have been around a long time. I have not ever seen such an incompetent group of idiots in charge of anything. I mean, literally nobody. I mean, Steve Reed yesterday was on Good Morning Britain basically saying, it's all very well to say with the benefit of hindsight, we should have known that Peter Mandelson was a liar. Yeah. They pointed out, as Richard Madeley pointed out, it was all in the public domain. You could have Googled it and found out about what he'd done. And that would have been the end of that.
And what did Reed say to that?
Reed said, we didn't know. He said, the security detail didn't kick up any information. The vetting process didn't kick up any information. What a load of old, bollocks, frankly.
Yeah, well, I agree. Why should you be listening to Steve Reed, by the
I
way?
know.
Because he was leader of Lambeth Council.
Mm.
Lambeth Council is in the most shambolic, and has been, by the way, most of my knowledgeable life. I used to live around that way,
Yeah.
right? Lambeth Council is a total, complete shambles, now being investigated by the government.
Yeah.
So God knows what they'll find out there. Why? How does a person like that end up Secretary of State for the Environment and being wheeled out as some kind of guru about the Epstein Mandelson position? We should have a level of competence which a board. By the way, it doesn't have to be a political. It doesn't have to be pro-socialist, pro. Just say that these guys have been put forward by the Labour, or they've been put forward by the Tories or the Lib Dems. Now I want you to ask a series of questions. What have you done in your previous life?
Yes.
Right, and then they say, I ran Lambeth Council. At that, there's a trap door. Bang! It opens, disappears, and that is the bloody end of it. Right?
Yep.
You don't have to listen to somebody explaining to you what a genius they are and how they're worried about the future and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
The competency level is really terrible,
Yeah.
my fear is that okay. So imagine what the pressure is on HMRC right now.
Yeah.
In order to come up with a solution to what we should do in relation to the 40,000 that that Angela Rayner chose not to pay in stamp duty. Now, there's a very good guy called Dan Needle,
Yes.
who says that on average, the tax expert, on average, the fine will be around 8,000 quid.
Right.
Okay. Now, can you imagine the pressure that's being put on, political pressure being put on HMRC right now to say, don't do that, or the opposite, do that. So from the Starmer people, they're coming in saying, give her a good whack, because if she's fined 8 grand or 10 grand, how on earth can she go from being fined 10 grand by HMRC to putting herself up as a potential prime minister of our country? Or the other side, her lot, all the trade union movement, all piling in to HMRC saying, look, do her a favour. It was an administrative oversight. Isn't it funny with those administrative oversights, how they always go out in favour of the politician?
Yes.
Anyway, so the other side are saying, for God's sake, don't do that, right? Because if you do that, her career will be over, So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. She herself accepts that she can't run for number 10 until the HMRC issue is resolved. Now, the other thing they could do is just keep it going. Just keep it going. Normally, when you deal with the tax man, it takes forever to sort everything out. So let's hope this is the case, because then she's on the outer and can't run after May or June. So what's your bet? Your bet is come May or something, he gets slung out, or there's a challenge. Immediately there's a challenge, he has to stand down. He's not going to fight it. It's not going to work. Right. So who in your bet will be Prime Minister come September?
My worry is it's going to be Miliband, because he's the most popular man in the party, incredibly, and he's also been leader before, so they'll take a view that he's the safe pair of hands, even though clearly isn't.
He's not a safe. In fact, he's an unsafe pair of hands. I mean, But why would you pick somebody who had been beaten before? So that's how desperate they are. How desperate Labour are, that they are now hunting around to dig up bodies that previously most people thought had totally expired. And he has some grip on Starmer. Because I don't know whether you remember, I don't know whether I talked to you about this, about some I listened to a BBC 5 p.m. Radio 4 programme in which he was on, and it was put to him, is it true that Starmer came to you and said, you've done such a good job at energy, thank you, done such a good job at energy, we are transferring you we'd like you to move to housing because
Right.
Angela Rayner's gone.
That's right, and he wouldn't
There's
go,
a vacancy, and we're 1.5 million homes, and so far we've built 7, and one of those has fallen down. Okay, so we'd like you to go in there with all your energy and all your drive and push it right on. Honestly, it'd be fantastic, right? And so, what do you think then, Ed? No, pardon?
Yeah.
No, I'm not going. And effectively, what he said was, "Okay, if you want me to do that, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go back to the backbenches and cause you merry hell
Yeah.
as leader, as people coagulate around me from the soft left." I was absolutely astonished that a Secretary of State would feel boldened enough to go on a national media and actually say, "I gave this."
Yeah.
To the Prime Minister. And so that's how strong he feels. So you may be right. I was chatting with Jacob Rees-Mogg the other night. And by the way, could I recommend that you get Jacob to come on?
Yes.
A more elegant,
Fantastic man.
interesting,
Yeah.
intelligent guy. I've yet to meet. An absolute joy to be alongside. And the way he argues, it should be a masterclass for all forms of politics.
Yeah.
It was he that made this point about Miliband being the most likely winner.
Well, we've got there's a fantastic clip, if you haven't seen it, of him defenestrating James O'Brien, who tried to allege that he had a family trust which was run offshore. And he basically gives James O'Brien a lesson not only in arguing, but in family trusts and in offshore funds. And it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Well, James O'Brien, by the way, don't worry about James O'Brien. He's done great. He lives. I think he lives Brentford way, and he lives in a gated community.
He does.
So congratulations to LBC. Well, congratulations to him for having an audience, right? So at least we know that there are 500,000 half-wits in our country. So he's got a, and he's done. You know, they've paid him. They pay him Mondays and Fridays. They send a security corps van round.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes the security corps van can't get in with the money because they haven't got the gate number. No, so everything. Honestly, socialism has done just great. Now, somebody also told me that one of his kids goes to a private school.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that really would be. I couldn't believe that. I said that is not possible. It's not the James O'Brien I know.
Yeah, well, he went to a private school as well. I mean, for heaven's sake. Anyway, this is brilliant. I've got even more good news for you, Kelvin. While you've been on, we've just hit a record live audience figure, which is climbing every single day. We just went through 6 million views this morning. So we're going from strength to strength.
Fantastic.
So thank you very much indeed for your time, as ever. We'll see you same time next week. Kelvin McKenzie, former editor of The Sun. Very sensible man. I love the idea of the old trapdoor vetting process, don't you? You know, you come in, if they don't like you, it's a bit like that James Bond movie, the one with Christopher, what's his face, when they have the trapdoor and the people get fired out of the plane. What was it called? What was the name of that James Bond film? I'm sure somebody will tell me. It was Christopher Walken and it was Roger Moore. Somebody will tell me. It was all filmed over San Francisco in a big airship and all that. Jacob Rees-Mogg, we think, is coming on next week, by the way, which is great. Let's get an update on the poll. We've got who will be the next Prime Minister, tax dodger, mastermind, mad millipede, or Wes Streeting, who's so boring he doesn't even have a nickname. Incredibly, the tax dodger, Angela Rayner, is leading with 51%. Mastermind David Lammy, 11%. Mad Millipede, 27%. See, I worry that he might be the one that they go for because he's the one who is so much more liked than everybody else inside the actual party. We shall see. Lots more to do. We're going to talk to Philip Kisley coming up very shortly. A very, very fantastic guest again. We'll ask him what the latest news is on the front of the newspapers. But also, we'll be asking him about cousin marriage as well, because I think that's a big story this morning that we need to talk about. And, of course, the future for the royal family in this country. First, though, let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, it's Friday the 6th of February. I'm Edward Hughes and I like a banana. Oh joy, another glorious day in Starmer's Britain. Kier's big Renew British Values speech. Completely drowned out by the fact he apparently appointed Peter Mandelson, yes, that Peter Mandelson, as US ambassador, despite the man's charming holiday snaps with Jeffrey Epstein. Slimy Starmer is now out here apologising to victims, calling it all deceit and lies. while Metro screams PM battles for survival and his own MPs sharpen the knives. Truly inspirational leadership. Meanwhile, the economy is doing fantastically. Bank of England just downgraded growth forecasts again, because why give the reincarnation of Richard III an easy day? Inflation's still being stubborn, workers get the usual bleak outlook, and borrowing costs are climbing because who doesn't love a leadership crisis premium? And the weather? Delightful. Southwest England and South Wales have had rain every single day of 2026 so far. Met Office says, no end in sight. Shocking twist, I know. So, yeah, politics imploding, wallets shrinking, and you're probably flooded. Happy Friday, everyone. Really feeling that post-election glow. Who said the grown-ups are back in the room? Please remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
Please do remember to like and subscribe. We're doing very, very well this week. Record numbers, as we said. A View to a Kill is the name of that movie I was thinking of. Christopher Walken was the bad guy. He was the villain. And Roger Moore was the James Bond in that one. 8:14, by the way, is the time. Philip Kisley coming up very shortly. Yeah, the idea is that if you've got somebody being vetted to do a particular job, whether it's in government or anything else, and Kelvin came up with this and I quite like it, if it doesn't work, and they say something which is the wrong answer or something that disqualifies them from the job, you literally just pull a lever and the trapdoor opens and they fall down into a pit of snakes or something. Why not? Maybe we could nominate who the government should do that to, because almost every single member of the cabinet is unqualified for whatever job they're doing, aren't they? Absolutely extraordinary. Lots of you talking about the situation surrounding Keir Starmer. He's been labelled gullible and weak over the Mandelson situation on page 1 of the Times. A whole bunch of women are apparently going to go and visit him, according to the Iron newspaper. Labour women will go and see Keir Starmer and tell him to resign. Keir in present danger, says the Mirror on page 1. And of course, anger at the Prime Minister's sorry excuse yesterday. Shall we have another look at that? Before we talk to Philip, let's have a look at Keir Starmer's apology that he made yesterday in Hastings, of all places.
Let me be clear, no one is above accountability. And no one, however well connected, however experienced, however senior, should hold public office if they cannot meet the basic test of honesty. I also want to address the publication of the information Mandelson provided during the appointment process. I understand the strength of public feeling. I share the anger that people feel when powerful individuals appear to escape scrutiny. And I want to be able to release those documents as quickly as possible. I wanted to release them yesterday, in fact, and to talk about them at Prime Minister's questions. But the police have advised that releasing certain information now could risk prejudicing a future investigation or legal process. And however frustrating from my personal point of view that is, and it is, I will not take any step, however politically tempting, however popular, that risks justice for victims. Because this is not and must never become a political game. The victims of Epstein have lived with trauma that most of us can barely comprehend. And they've had to relive it again and again. They have seen accountability delayed and too often denied. To them, I want to say this. I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again. But I also want to say this. In this country, we will not look away. We will not shrug our shoulders. And we will not allow the powerful to treat justice as optional.
I mean, as I said before, he's sorry. Well, we're bloody even more sorry that he ever entered the door of number 10 Downing Street, because he has made a complete and utter rick of the job, of the country, and of our standing in the world, quite frankly. Let's talk to Dr. Philip Kisley, who is, of course, a man after my own heart, a philosopher, I suppose, of modern times. Philip, very good morning to you. Good to see you.
Oh, Mike, it's great to see you, and it was great to hear the legendary Kelvin McKenzie earlier, just talking.
Yes. Don't you love his idea of the trap door, where basically, people like Steve Reed, when you go, what's your qualification for this job? Oh, I used to run Lambeth Council. Off you go, down into the pit of snakes or serpents or whatever it is. But we seem to be now governed by the world's most useless individuals. Not one of them with any kind of redeeming qualities, it seems to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been an absolute pantomime, hasn't it, over the last few days? I've literally done nothing but follow the news and talk about the news. We are in amazing, groundbreaking, life-changing times, but look at that lot, looking at the Labour government coming out and being holier than thou, finding their moral compass over Epstein, how many years later? Quite sickening. I really had a little bit of sick in my mouth when I was because I was thinking back inevitably, as probably so many viewers were, to the Pakistani rape gang scandal. Not one of them wanted a national inquiry. There was no outrage when Starmer and co were dragging their feet and just saying, "Oh well, we won't have a national. It won't work. We'll just have little local ones with no oversight whatsoever." So all of this stuff is absolute utter nonsense. But I mean, he's a dead man walking, because it isn't just his own snakes turning on him. Well, you would expect that, because they're looking for opportunities themselves. As I say, this isn't about ethics. This isn't about morals. This is brute politics. But also the heritage media, the MSN, are now actually beginning to ask the questions they should have asked on the run-up to the election. And if they would have actually done their jobs and been journalists, then probably we wouldn't be in this situation we're in now. So it's sickening for all of those reasons. All the usual suspects are responsible for this. It isn't just Starmer. He's just the hapless idiot in the centre of it all.
Well, that's true, isn't it? And it is incredible, though. You're right. The journalistic kind of problem in this country, and I've spoken about this quite a lot recently because I spoke to Liz Truss about it. The curiosity of journalism has disappeared. They don't ask the right questions anymore. They simply, exist to kind of get their name in lights, or to get a show on Sky or the BBC, or to somehow get a clip on the news where they're interacting with the Prime Minister or the Foreign Secretary or whatever it is. And they're not actually, the idea that everyone's turned around and gone, oh my God, Peter Mandelson told us lies and that's why we're all in this terrible state. Are you sorry, I nearly swore there. Are you having a laugh? Are you kidding me?
It's insane. It's insane. It's the naivety. Well, it isn't naivety. It's part of a systematic thing where the national broadcaster, ITV, Channel 4, all of that kind of stuff, they are the propaganda wing of the Labour Party. And it's not just the media, it's the universities train them up, the civil service administrates the whole thing. So we're in this kind of trap in a way that's developed over the last 15 years or so, and of course went on absolute overdrive, went on steroids with lockdown, in which this class of person has overtaken every aspect of public life. And there are just a few people from the sidelines, one or two channels, now the burgeoning independent media, people like you and commentators like me, are pushing back on this. And we are getting traction. You are getting huge viewing figures now, and we do have a voice. But there's a huge amount of work to do, because it feels like, I just go back to that time in lockdown, and I don't want to dwell on that too much, but remember on Thursday nights when all of these lunatics were stood on their doorsteps
Oh my
banging,
God.
worshipping the NHS.
Yeah.
The NHS is the other thing as well, and all of these elements, all of these institutions, all of these organisations have one thing in common, Mike. They do not work because they're rooted in socialism.
Yeah, exactly right. Funnily enough, just while you're on, because we want to make sure that everyone ridicules this bloody idiot who calls himself the Prime Minister of this country, somebody's actually live streaming a cabbage inside a virtual House of Commons. I don't know if we can have a look at the... Should we have a look at the short version, Pooch? It's going on right now. Who's going to go first, the cabbage or the Prime Minister? It's a nice play on the whole Liz Truss thing. Has the rot set in? Have a look.
Labour MPs now have to decide if they want to be accessories to his cover-up. Can the Prime Minister guarantee that he won't remove the whip if they refuse to vote for his whitewash amendment?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the first exemption is in relation to anything that could compromise national security.
All right, I'll come out.
That is not a...
If you actually watch the cabbage and listen to Starmer, it's almost uncanny, right? Because it could be the cabbage talking.
I mean, I was listening to, I think it was Barry Gardner who was talking on a chat show, and he called, this is really interesting actually, because it sums the whole thing up. He called Starmer and Starmer's premiership, he called it Project Starmer, and that's what we have, or Project Cabbage, we might as well call it, okay? It's the same thing, actually. I don't want a project as my Prime Minister, I want being. I want someone who understands the country. I want someone who understands the culture. I want someone actually who can speak to people without sounding like a robot. Now, is that too much to ask? That's before politics. That's before policy. And that's before governance. It almost feels like it feels like we're in a parallel universe talking about it. Feels like the Twilight Zone, how we've ended up with the worst Prime Minister in history, okay? And we're only, just over 18 months into it. The clown show, the ridiculous car crash of a government which has worked against us. This government has been like an occupying government right from the word go, when top of the agenda, Monday morning, day one, they decided to freeze grannies, okay? So what we have is just a constant, it's like a constant slow car crash, a slow tragedy. And on the other side of that, what we have are people whose lives have changed because of his lack of humanity, his cabbageness, their cabbageness. We have what did we have last year, Mike? We had 41,000 illegals coming over on boats. All of them males, undocumented, from barbaric rape cultures, essentially. Let's be clear about it, okay? And what has resulted in that is young children, young girls and women having to change their lives, having to change their habits to accommodate this. And they, they won't go out at night. I was just talking to a friend who's in her 30s. She lives in central London, a professional woman, and she's, I don't go out at night on my own. Oh God, no. It's too dangerous. It's ridiculous. Someone got shot on the next street a few. So that's what we've got. Now, it didn't used to be like this, Mike. This is the thing. It didn't used to be like this. And if it's like this now, what's it going to be like in the future? I think I don't want to get too philosophical about this, but one of the really terrible things this government has done to us, it's almost as though they've stolen our future. Because many people are looking at their lives, looking at their children in particular, and thinking, my God, what's it going to be like in 2, 5, 10 years' time?
Totally.
But not that, Mike, sorry, just to finish the point, they've also stolen our past as well, because, reparations, changing history, rewriting history. And if you go out into towns and cities now, it used to be that people had a collective memory because people lived there for generations and generations. I think we're the first generation in which that collective memory is going to be erased for many, many people. And that's just really bloody tragic.
Yeah, I mean, I was sent a video yesterday. I haven't. I'm not going to play it yet, but I might try and play it next week. From Northern Ireland, from a guy who used to be in the RUC, who's a trusted source of mine, and it's a picture. It's a video from a post office, basically in Northern Ireland, where 3 Somalian women are cashing whatever it is that you get now from the government. They collectively, between the 3 of them, took £1,020 over the cash till, and were counting it in cash money. And this was clearly their sort of whatever their benefit is for living in Northern Ireland. And you just think, I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable. That shouldn't be going on. These people shouldn't be coming here and being handed free money by effectively the likes of you and I, who are paying our taxes in order to fund it. I also saw another video the other day on Twitter of a bunch of illegal migrants fighting each other in a street outside some HMO where there was sofas in the street, rubbish everywhere, and they were literally just punching the hell out of each other. And these are scenes that are going on up and down the country now every single day.
It's the degradation of our society, isn't it? It's the degradation of our culture. It's taking us for fools. Yeah. But not only taking us for fools, we're paying for the privilege as well. I mean, it's the worst possible case scenario, and they know this, okay? So all you have to do is look out of the window, right? If you see everything getting worse, and not only getting worse, it's getting more dangerous. Yeah. They are asking you, no, they're telling you to pay for it. And when you're paying for it with things like council tax, you are getting 2-tier treatment in return, okay? Because when they talk about human rights, we know this. It's human rights for them. It's human rights for illegal immigrants. It's human rights for criminals. It isn't human rights for us. It isn't human rights for taxpayers. It isn't human rights for homeowners. So we are living in this ridiculous 2-tier society, but it's much worse than that. They are punishing us. And I would say, I don't know what viewers think about this, it'd be interesting to look at the chat, but I would say it's a kind of abuse. It's a kind of very high level of abuse in which not only do they say you've got to pay for this, you've got to do this, you've got to make sure that everything works, you've got to go to work, but we've also got the privilege of saying, well, you're white, you're horrible, you're supremacist, you're all of these things. So it's a poisonous combination of complete ineptitude when it comes to economics, a complete lack of moral fibre, and the most awful, insidious, horrible ideology at the centre of it. You throw in great big dollops of naivety. And my God, you're in civil war territory.
Yeah, well, you really are, because it feels almost like a kind of a deliberate sort of mind game, if you like, torture for people who are being reconditioned by the people who are supposed to work for us. I was talking to Pooch this morning, my producer, about how, these people work for us, right? The likes of Steve Reed, Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, who go on television and refuse to answer questions or, get snarky with the person asking the questions because they don't think they're asking the right questions. And it's like, mate, you work for us. It's not the other way round. You don't get to tell us how to operate in our own country. You don't get to tell us how to behave in our own country. You don't get to tell us what to think of people coming into our country. What you get to do is to do the bidding of the people who elected you to do a job, to steward the business of Britain reasonably competently, which you are singularly failing to do.
Yeah, I mean, just as you were talking there, I was just jotting down a couple of words. One was arrogance.
Yeah.
The other is contempt. They with contempt. And I was just thinking back to when all of this started. And when you're talking about this stuff and you're talking about Starmer, you can't help but think about Blair and the Blair years where all of this started, because I suppose it's a mirror image, and we're coming to the end of that era. But didn't they say that they wanted to rub our nose in diversity?
Yeah.
They wanted to flood the country with immigrants, so they would have a voter base, and it's almost as though they've been playing with matches and the house is set on fire. They don't know what to do, so they're just going to walk away from it, and they us all to burn. I mean, this is terrible stuff. This is the polar opposite of what people in government, people in power should be doing. Their first concern, their absolute priority should be the people of this country. They should be protecting us. They should be looking for our welfare. They should be looking out for our well-being, and they are doing the absolute opposite. This is about that. I mean, you spend, well, obviously you spend tons and tons of time in Westminster. I work in Westminster as well. We're immersed in it. And there is a class of people there. It is just what they do for a living. It has nothing to do with being of service, with making things better. There is a set of people in the Labour Party, around the Labour Party. It is the civil service as well. And it's a think tanks that kind of surround them. They are all the same kind of people. And I know, because I was in the university sector for 25 years, I used to teach them. It's like a sausage machine. They just go from private school to university, bad to civil service to and then to cabinet minister. And that is their life. And they no idea, Mike, what is going on in the real world, and especially in northern towns like where I am now.
No, of course not. And I've had this argument as well with Liz Truss, where I was kind of, because she said to me, when did the media kind of start to become as woke as it now is? And I said, it's exactly what you've just described. It's the same people, and they either end up in the civil service or as spads, as you say, in politics, or in the media. You know, because it suddenly, I turned around, I think it was when I came back from America in sort of 1992, 93, and suddenly all the people in the newsroom had all got posh accents, and they'd all been to Oxbridge. And, you know, when I'd left in the early part of the 80s, they were ordinary men and women, working class people who had left school, decided not to go to university because you just didn't in those days, and they forged a craft which was called journalism. They went to a local newspaper. They were trained up. They learned shorthand. They learned the law. They learned about how to ask people questions, how to knock on people's doors when their children had been run over in carts. You know, they did proper jobs, and they were very proud and very independently minded, and they were bloody awkward, quite frankly, which is why I got into journalism. But instead now what you've got is this kind of gilded class of people who go to skiing holidays in the wintertime and diving holidays in the summertime and make pretty good money, but they don't care if they don't because their parents have got plenty of money, they've got a big house, probably got a Volvo. You know, it's a very different world now, which we call the media.
Yeah, it's actually the polar opposite. So the guys who were in journalism, you know, when I was a kid, it was a trade, and they were there things up, and they were rough and ready guys. I could quite imagine why you went into journalism. Okay, but now it's the polar opposite. They are there to maintain the status quo.
Gatekeepers.
But yeah, they are gatekeepers. They're there to maintain the status quo and to propagate the narrative. And no matter what, no matter how shameful it is, they will maintain this narrative no matter what. Now, I was thinking about what Keir Starmer was saying yesterday. And, you know, all of the information is in, or at least enough of the information is in for anybody to make an informed judgment that he should go, that it is his fault, that he knew that Epstein was involved with child prostitution, that it's paedophilia, that it's the most awful things you can think of. And what does Starmer do? Instead of saying, yes, okay, I knew about this, I made the most terrible decision, I'm going with my head bowed in shame. He blames the security services for this.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, politicians do not do that because the security services cannot answer back, okay? This is down to him. He's the Prime Minister, for God's sake. He's got access to everything, and he's playing the victim card. I think Badenoch yesterday said he was playing the victim card, and I think both Kemi and Nigel were pretty good on this. Well, my God, they should be really, you know, they should have their knife.
Absolutely.
But the point is, he's gonna his fingernails are going to be on the door of 10 Downing Street, and they're going to have to be prized off, and that to me is just revolting. That sums up everything. That is just precisely what we've been talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Philip, great to talk to you. People are loving it. We've got so many people watching the show nowadays that every day it's just getting bigger and bigger. So we grow, we do exponentially what everybody wants because we talk about the stuff that people want to talk about. You know, so welcome to the show. Thank you very much indeed. Philip Kisley, Dr. Philip Kisley there with his take on what we've lost and what they're trying to take away from us as well. Let's not forget, this is what they try to do. You know, these people who want to reconstruct Britain in their own image, or as far as they're concerned, what they think Britain's image should be. And we can't let them get away with it. We honestly cannot let them get away with it. And this bozo, Keir Starmer, needs to go, and he needs to go quickly. We need to chase him out of office. And I mean, then we can work on the next one. But, you know, let's not forget Gordon Brown's role in all this as well. I mean, he's kind of trying to play the victim as well, saying, oh, my goodness me, you know, Peter Mandelson, what a terrible man. Imagine him giving away all of our secrets while he was working for me as my deputy. Well, you bloody well brought him back into government, you plonker, you know. That was the problem. We've got to do Plank of the Day still. I've also got to do my meltdown rant, which I'll do coming up after 9 o'clock. We're going to speak to Harvey Proctor coming up in a little while. Also, Sasha Lord is going to join us from Manchester. He'll talk to us about the poor state of the hospitality business and what's going on in the nighttime economy, of course, as well. Right now, though, let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, it's Friday the 6th of February. I'm Edward Hughes and I like a banana. Oh joy. Another glorious day in Starmer's Britain. Kier's big Renew British Values speech. Completely drowned out by the fact he apparently appointed Peter Mandelson, yes, that Peter Mandelson, as US ambassador, despite the man's charming holiday snaps with Jeffrey Epstein. Slimy Starmer is now out here apologising to victims, calling it all deceit and lies, while Metro screams PM battles for survival and his own MPs sharpen the knives. Truly inspirational leadership. Meanwhile, the economy is doing fantastically. Bank of England just downgraded growth forecasts again. Because why give the reincarnation of Richard III an easy day? Inflation's still being stubborn. Workers get the usual bleak outlook. And borrowing costs are climbing because who doesn't love a leadership crisis premium? And the weather? Delightful. Southwest England and South Wales have had rain every single day of 2026 so far. Met Office says, no end in sight. Shocking twist, I know. So, yeah, politics imploding, wallets shrinking, and you're probably flooded. Happy Friday, everyone. Really feeling that post-election glow. Who said the grown-ups are back in the room? Please remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
There's the news with Edward Hughes. Many of you, of course, have been listening and watching this week with the news, looking for news about herons. We haven't really done much on the heron front today, so we'll have to address that maybe in the next hour, Pooch. But there he is, he's back, the crane. It's not a heron, as you well know. We haven't quite decided what to do with it. You know, Sarah Potion was on the other day, saying that she'd quite like to have it for her pond up in Cheshire, because apparently there are proper herons coming to her pond and eating all the fish. So she wants a bit of a fake heron, or even a crane, to see if it chases them away. So we'll maybe take a view on that. We haven't got any reason to ask you to do more likes on the channel today, but we would like you to do more likes on the channel today, as we do every day, because the more likes we get, the better it is for our channel algorithms. We've got loads and loads of you watching. I'd love it if more and more of you subscribed as well. We've got 129,000 subscribers. Let's get it to 130 by the end of the show. How about that? What if you subscribe to the show right now on YouTube? If we get it to 130,000, I'll do something interesting. I don't know what that'll be. Maybe Pooch could nominate something that I'm supposed to do. We shall talk about that in a minute. Coming up, we're going to be talking, as I say, in the next hour to Sasha Lord about the poor state of our economy. Rachel Reeves is already in trouble again because it turns out that the Bank of England has slashed yet again growth forecasts for the economy. More job losses are coming. There's going to be 2 more years of misery under this particular regime. And that's what I'm going to call it from this point on. But we'll come back to that in a moment because Harvey Proctor's here and we're going to talk to him about a great many things, including, of course, the terrible story of his own sort of life, which was completely and utterly upended by false accusations that were made about him. And have a look at this before we talk.
Harvey Proctor says being the suspect at the centre of a controversial police operation destroyed his life. The former Tory MP has just been exonerated after a year under investigation. In that time, he faced accusations of paedophilia and child murder and had his home raided. Today, in an emotional news conference, he spoke of the strain he's been under.
It has been a harrowing time for me, for my family, and for my friends. The trauma I have experienced, I would not wish on anyone, not even on Nick.
Nick was the witness who triggered the investigation. Now in his 40s, he claimed he was abused as a child in politicians' apartments and had even seen murders take place. He alleged Mr. Proctor was involved, along with former Prime Minister Edward Heath and ex-Home Secretary Leon Britton. Police found no evidence to support the claims.
These are the worst things that can be said of a human being. I think they regarded me to be disposable.
Mr. Proctor has called on the Met Police Commissioner to resign and says Home Secretary Theresa May should consider her position for not intervening. The Met has already said it won't apologise and will continue to investigate serious allegations of abuse.
I said what was happening to me could happen to anyone. It could happen to you.
As Mr. Proctor rebuilds his life, one abuse charity has tonight said it hopes the collapse of Operation Midland won't deter any abuse victims from coming forward. Julian Drucker, 5 News.
I mean, that's obviously a report on the news from a few years ago. Quite upsetting to watch that, I think, for most people, because to be wrongly accused of anything is a dreadful state of affairs to be in. But to be wrongly accused of that, I think, has to be possibly one of the worst things that could ever happen. Harvey, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning to you.
That must be quite a harrowing thing for you to watch back, because clearly when you were speaking, you were very upset about what had happened. I mean, has there been any change in circumstances in terms of the police's attitude or in terms of what the police may have done?
Well, of course, subsequent to that, and we are talking over 10 years, the police did apologise, and I did sue the Metropolitan Police and form a settlement with them. But of course, it goes on. I said in 2016, this will never go away. And of course, it doesn't and will not. And I continue to speak out on these matters because I believe the falsely accused should be better represented. I think the police do not regard false accusations as that common. They're very common. And so I try to speak out on behalf of the falsely accused where I can.
Yes. And I mean, I don't know whether you would agree with me, but I wonder whether when you see the situations, for example, now with Peter Mandelson and historical things that he has done, I wonder if there's a contrast and a kind of hypocrisy to be drawn there in terms of, you know, the way that some people in government speak. You know, they speak of you know, like what happened to you was despicable, ghastly, horrible and awful. And as you say, it kind of follows you around for the rest of time. Peter Mandelson, on the other hand, is a ghastly individual, a horrible man, somebody who has been guilty of things in the past, which everybody knew about, but he gets talked about as if somehow nobody knew.
Well, I think there is a group at the top of the Labour Party who have double standards on all these matters. Have you noticed how quiet Tom Watson become?
Yeah.
Well, Tom Watson was presented to the House of Lords when Tom Watson became a peer by none other than Peter Mandelson.
Yeah.
And Tom Watson was the cheerleader in chief for Carl Beach,
Yes.
who made allegations against me and others. He has said not a word about what is happening at the top of the Labour Party. Remember, Keir Starmer, before Operation Midland, was director of public prosecutions.
Yeah.
He was the one who went to the police, who urged them, because of low rape convictions, that henceforth the Met and other police forces should believe the victim. They then did believe the victim without any evidence, i.e. Carl Beach, and Operation Midland went ahead. Has Keir Starmer apologised for that error? No apology there.
No, quite. And Tom Watson, of course, was the chief kind of enforcer inside of Downing Street when Gordon Brown was Prime Minister, and when Peter Mandelson was basically, if not giving away national state secrets, selling national state secrets to a foreign individual by the name of Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted paedophile, a man who was known to be a criminal, and a man who was known to have access to financial markets which could benefit him with that sort of information. I mean, I don't believe, it beggars belief for me, and it's not credible, that nobody in Downing Street knew what Mandelson was doing. It seems incredible that they didn't know that.
The hypocrisy at the top of the Labour Party has been exposed, and it is clear for all to see.
Yeah.
How they get out of it without substantial resignations, I do not know.
Exactly right. And in terms of Tom Watson's role in your particular situation and the whole involvement of Carl Beach, I mean, there's also people like James O'Brien who were very much part of the conspiracy, if you like, as well. He hasn't really apologised properly to you, has he?
He hasn't apologised improperly either. No apology at all. Tom Watson met Carl Beach at the House of Commons, certainly on one occasion, if not more. He put pressure on the Metropolitan Police to investigate and try to get prosecutions against those allegedly involved in Operation Midland. He put pressure on the police to such an extent that the head of the police investigation at the time made notes about how on earth do we deal with Tom Watson and his pressure. Well, what I would say, if I may, now, to the police, the Metropolitan Police Service, is I hope you are keeping close track of Mr. Peter Mandelson.
Yes.
Because he has to be interviewed. Of course, everyone is innocent until proven guilty, but he must be interviewed and not get away with things.
Right. And
I use those words advisedly, and I hope the police are listening.
Yes. Well, what's interesting to me, and I smell a rat here, if you'll pardon the expression, Keir Starmer yesterday, when he had his speech about an apology and how sorry he was for the victims, even though he didn't appear to be sorry for the victims when he appointed Peter Mandelson to be ambassador to the USA, he said that he wanted to release documents, but the police had advised him not to in case it prejudiced their inquiry. Now, to me, that smells like Downing Street and Keir Starmer going to the police to say, look, if you tell us not to release these documents, we won't release them.
Yes, there's certainly a cover-up going on. Whether it will be sustainable over time, I do not know. But if I was the media, I would be ringing the Metropolitan Police Service day after day after day to discover when they propose to interview Peter Mandelson.
Yes.
The sooner the better.
Yeah, why haven't they done it already?
They've had time. They've had time. And why hasn't Starmer removed Mandelson's peerage so he can no longer call himself Lord Mandelson?
Yes. Well, he says he's going to do that, but again, he hasn't done it yet.
Oh, they can be very slow at times.
Yeah.
And there may be reasons why they're being very slow. I may be, at my august age, supremely cynical about these matters. But the sooner all these things are put in place, the better.
Yes. And you say innocent until proven guilty, as everybody obviously should be, but that wasn't your experience, was it?
Oh, no. The Metropolitan Police, after the search of my home, went on television and radio and said that Carl Beach was credible and true when he wasn't credible and he wasn't true.
No. And I mean, how is your life now, Harvey, in terms of remembering how awful it was during those very dark days when you were accused of these terrible things, which you knew you hadn't done? I mean, do you ever get over something like that?
I'm not sure because I haven't yet.
Yeah.
I have the great support of my partner, who I've known for over 50 years. I'm working again, and I am relaxed. But the idea that this can ever go away is nonsensical. It can't, and it won't.
Yeah.
But I do my best to speak out for others, particularly the false accused.
Yeah.
And when, as I'm kindly invited to comment on political or topical matters, I try to make myself available.
Yes. No, we're very grateful that you have done that this morning. Let me ask you one sort of final question about the state of the nation, because we talk a lot on this show about a lost Britain, a country that we all grew up in, which seems to be not really there anymore, for a whole variety of reasons, not just simply because of the changing demographics and all of that. But what do you make of the way Britain is right now?
It's not what it was 50 years ago. Britain has changed considerably. Whether we can ever get back those qualities and benefits that we had all those years ago and be the Britain that I remember as a teenager, I'm not sure. But while I'm alive and others I know are alive, they will try.
And do you miss that Britain?
I beg your pardon?
Do you miss that Britain that there used to be?
I think I do. I'm at an age when I have seen many governments, many prime ministers, and many actions by politicians, most not for the good. But I believe that Britain is recoverable and that people will benefit by sticking with the Britain that we used to know, not the one that we know now.
Yeah. And just on Keir Starmer, what chances do you give him to be Prime Minister for how much longer?
The political issue for the Labour Party is they have local elections coming up, which they believe that they will lose big time, and who would take on the poison chalice of Prime Minister or leader of the Labour Party now before those elections. So I think he has some time to say his fond farewells.
Yes. Well, let's hope he doesn't take too long about that, because we quite like to see the back of him.
Indeed, but you will.
Very good. Harvey Proctor, fantastic to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking time for us this morning, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, and good morning to all your viewers and listeners.
Thank you very much indeed. Harvey Proctor. What a fantastic individual. We've had some great guests today, and all of this week, actually. So, and thank you to all of you for listening. Incredible numbers going on at the moment. We've got a poll, of course, out there as well. The latest update shows that it's still pretty much all going in one direction. The question is today, who will be the next Prime Minister? Will it be the tax dodger? Will it be Mastermind? Will it be Mad Millipede? Will it be Wes Streeting, who's so boring that he doesn't even have a nickname, right? Tax dodger, of course, Angela Rayner is in the lead with 50%. Mad Millipede coming in second, 28%. Mastermind Lammy coming up on the rails at 11%. Oh, actually, he's at the back. Wes Streeting's just overtaken him. Lammy's so useless, he's been overtaken by a man with no nickname, 12%. Coming up in the next hour, we'll be hearing from Sasha Lord, formerly the king of the nighttime economy up in Manchester, a man immersed in the hospitality industry. He'll be telling us about how dangerous this new Labour government is. Well, I say new, it's not really new, is it? But how useless Rachel Reeves is. News today, of course, that once again the Bank of England has downgraded growth prospects for the British economy. More than likely, we're going to have another 2 years of misery, unemployment, and just straight away tax rises. Absolutely dreadful. We'll be doing our plank of the day. We'll be taking more of your messages coming in as well, so do keep them coming. Between Starmer and Harmer, they have been dismantling policing and the army, says Von Louis. Great man, Harvey, says John. Thank you very much indeed. Harvey making sure to say hello to chat. Lovely man, says Truth Smiles. Pauline says, I had such a lovely childhood. Britain was a wonderful country to grow up in. I want that Britain back again. Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of us do. Be careful, says Labour are a danger to this land and the Tories. I don't know if you mean that they're a danger as well. Tax dodgers shouldn't be MPs, says Capricorn Moon. I think so. And Rainbow says, we don't need to go back, but move forward to a better Britain than ever before. This is the challenge for our grandchildren. Well, yeah, we do have that challenge for our grandchildren, but an awful lot of people I speak to now who have got children say, I don't know what the future is going to be like for them. We might have to discuss that at some length coming up. Coming up after this, though, it's going to be Edward Hughes with the news.
Good morning, it's Friday the 6th of February. I'm Edward Hughes and I like a banana. Oh joy, another glorious day in Starmer's Britain. Kier's big renew British values speech. Completely drowned out by the fact he apparently appointed Peter Mandelson, yes, that Peter Mandelson, as US ambassador, despite the man's charming holiday snaps with Jeffrey Epstein. Slimy Starmer is now out here apologising to victims, calling it all deceit and lies, while Metro screams PM battles for survival, and his own MPs sharpen the knives. Truly inspirational leadership. Meanwhile, the economy is doing fantastically. Bank of England just downgraded growth forecasts again, because why give the reincarnation of Richard III an easy day? Inflation's still being stubborn, workers get the usual bleak outlook, and borrowing costs are climbing because who doesn't love a leadership crisis premium? And the weather? Delightful. Southwest England and South Wales have had rain every single day of 2026 so far. Met Office says, no end in sight. Shocking twist, I know. So, yeah, politics imploding, wallets shrinking, and you're probably flooded. Happy Friday, everyone. Really feeling that post-election glow. Who said the grown-ups are back in the room? Please remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
The news with Howard, I call him Howard Hughes. I don't want to call him Howard Hughes. He's not some kind of mysterious bloke with long fingernails and a recluse living in a Hollywood mansion. No, it's Edward Hughes with the news there. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up, we'll be speaking to Sasha Lord about the state of play in the hospitality business in particular, because, you know, everything is going to hell in a handcart. And it's time now for Mike's Meltdown. let's have a look at where we are, right? We are currently rudderless. We are almost like a sea on a sort of a wave of calm, where underneath the surface of the water, there's all manner of terrible things going on. There's sharks, there's giant squid, there's barracudas, there's all manner of dangerous things, jellyfish that can sting you, things that can kill you, in fact. But on top of the surface, it's like we have been becalmed because we're not really going anywhere. This government is not taking us anywhere that we want to go. It's not taking us in the right direction. If anything, it's taking us in the wrong direction. And we've now got a Prime Minister who is literally useless. He's been defenestrated by his own hand. He basically appointed a man to be ambassador to the United States of America who should never have been in government, who should never have been given a job, right? Kier Starmer now walks around like a victim. He walks around like somebody who doesn't think he belongs anymore because he has no authority. He can't even control the people in his own office. He can't even sack Morgan McSweeney, who is his chief of staff, because Morgan McSweeney's actually got more power than him. But what's been forgotten in all of this is who actually is the piper and who is the person dancing to the tune. Because at the end of the day, whether it's a local authority, whether it's your local council, whether it is your county council, whether it is the House of Lords, whether it is the House of Commons, even in the old days, whether it was the European Union, none of these people would have a job if there was no taxpayers' money to provide the money to pay them, right? Kier Starmer gets a very handy income of something like, I don't know, £125,000, £140,000 a year, all paid for by you and I. Steve Reed, the housing secretary, goes on television and gives people a hard time for asking him questions he doesn't like. And yet, without taxpayers' money, he wouldn't have a job. These people work for us. There is actually a website which is called They Work For Us, in which you can go and look and see what expenses these people claim. They claim for paper clips. They claim for train travel. They claim for their heating allowance in their second homes. They claim for their council tax, right? In Angela Rayner's case, she claims for several different council taxes for several different properties. She doesn't know which one is which. They claim for all sorts of ridiculous expenses that you and I don't get a chance to claim for our own businesses. And they work for us. I keep saying that because that's what they do. And I think we need to remind them of it more often than we do. Because these people have got no business telling us what to do. They've got no business telling us how to run our lives. We should be telling them how to run their businesses, because their business is our business, right? We're going to be talking to Sasha Lord later. He runs businesses. He has run businesses. And the businesses that he runs and the businesses that we all run are under massive threat now. Why? Because they want to tax us more. They want to get more money, want to squeeze the lemon even harder. They want you to work harder so that they can work less. They want you to pay them more money so they can claim more. They want you to be able to help them to buy a second home, a second television, to pay for the heating. They want you to pay for that. And then they want to tell you how you should be living your life. And then they want to tell you what you should be thinking. And then they want to tell you who you should be liking and who you should be hating. And whether you should be far right or not. And whether you should be far left or not. And which way you should be voting. I'm sick of it. Sick to death of these people who think that they run the world on our money, on our coin. Just because we supply the money, they think we have no right to expect something in return. Well, I want something in return. I want competent government. I don't ask for superstars. We're not looking for the Ronaldo and Messi of the public purse. Somebody just plodding along like Tony Adams would be fine. We don't need superstars in government. We don't need Peter Mandelson in his flash suits and his £700 shoes, swanning around in private jets because it makes him feel good. No, we don't want any of that. What we want is a government that knows what it's doing, which immediately disqualifies this mob. We would like a Chancellor of the Exchequer who doesn't tell lies, right? It would be nice to have a Foreign Secretary who actually could point to Iran on a map. It'd be quite good to have a Justice Secretary, I know it's David Lammy, who doesn't want to dismantle the jury system. It would be quite nice to have a Prime Minister who doesn't want to ban elections and cancel democracy because he thinks it's the right thing to do. It would be nice, wouldn't it, if they just did what they were told and stopped telling us how we should be living our lives. That's all I'm asking for. And when Keir Starmer's gone, we'll have a party. We'll pay for it. But we need somebody to run this country who can actually be taken seriously. You know, don't wear a dark blue shirt with a dark blue jacket. You look like an idiot, right? Don't keep saying opportunities as if it sounds like a word with less than 3 syllables. Opportunities. That's what he says. Well, here's an opportunity for you. Bugger off. Get out and go to the back benches, never to be seen again. Why don't you go back to your useless career as a useless lawyer? I feel better now. Anyway, there's my meltdown for the day. I'll see you after this.
Why don't you relax and be a bit more MG? That would be a triumph.
There. So, here we are. It's 8 minutes past 9. Plank of the day coming up a little bit later on. We've got some great messages coming through. I agree with every word, says McClintock. Thank you very much indeed. Mike for Prime Minister, says Tracy. Very nice. We want our country back. Superb show, says Sue. Yes. Rayner should have been chucked out when she cuddled her tax. I presume when she fiddled her tax, and now she's standing for Prime Minister. Unbelievable. Yeah, absolutely right. I agree, says Kim. It started when the One Nation Tories took down Thatcher, who held on to our sterling. Yeah, so many great comments coming in. Here's one from Giz, who says he's dug in like an Alabama tick. He's not going anywhere like a tick. He needs digging out. Yeah, I hate to say it, but a few million dafties have effectively been voting for all this for years. Yeah, I mean, that is the problem, isn't it? I'll tell you what we should do now, because I think there's a couple of clips that we haven't played yet. You've seen the Kier cabbage, which we've had. Let's go back and have a look at Keir Starmer. When he went to America and introduced and unveiled, if you like, for the first time on US soil, how happy he was that they'd managed to find a new ambassador. Check it out.
Already I can feel there's a real buzz around Washington right now. You can sense that there's a new leader in town, that he's a true one-off, a pioneer in business and in politics. Many people love him. Others love to hate him. But to us, he's just Peter. And Peter is the right person to help us work with President Trump and to take this special relationship from strength to strength.
Yeah, and this is the same guy who now expects us to believe that he was duped by Peter Mandelson, that he didn't know that he was a liar, that he didn't know that he might be up to no good, that he didn't know. I mean, there's a story in the paper today that in 2010, Peter Mandelson asked to bring a Russian model into Downing Street so he could show her around. Apparently she was one of Jeffrey Epstein's mates. It also says in the Mail that Peter Mandelson offered to help Jeffrey Epstein obtain a Russian visa via a billionaire oligarch with links to Vladimir Putin. Right? This is back in 2010 as well. Epstein emailed Mandelson on November the 9th of that year to say, I do not have a visa for Russia. It is a bank holiday in Paris today. Any idea how I can get one? You mean, are you seriously telling me that this idiot, Keir Starmer, had no access to any of that information that security services would have been able to tell him about? And that he didn't know, for example, that Peter Mandelson had been involved in what can only be described as jiggery-pokery on 2 previous occasions when he had to resign from the government? Of course he knew. And he's now been called gullible and weak in the papers today. And apparently there's going to be a phalanx of women sent to see him because he's frightened of women to tell him to resign, just to get out. The worry is, of course, for an awful lot of businesses in this country, the policies of this government might not change and might not make it any easier for people to make any money. Let's talk to Sasha Lord now, formerly the head of the nighttime economy up in Manchester, businessman, entrepreneur, impresario. I don't want to overdo it, Sasha, but very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike, and thanks for welcoming me into your new home.
Yeah, not at all. Really, really good to see you. I mean, obviously, the matter at hand is the state of the government and whether or not you're going to end up with a new chancellor anytime soon. But today we've got the downgrading yet again by the Bank of England of the economy for the next couple of years. We're going to be struggling. We're going to be paying more taxes. The hospitality business in particular, which is obviously where you are, is in a dire straits, isn't it?
Yeah, Mike, we're absolutely on our knees. And every time I come on your show, people have a go at me on Twitter for saying, well, you supported Labour, you were a Labour Party member. And I'll put my hands up, Mike. Yes, I was a Labour Party member. I've resigned my membership. The reason I was at the manifesto launch in Manchester during the start of the general election. And the Chancellor stood there and told the room and told myself and told the press that she was the Chancellor of business and growth. And quite simply, she couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
You know, we've had 2 budgets since she came in. On her first budget, she raised national insurance. That has cost my industry, hospitality, the 5th biggest sector in the whole of the UK, the 3rd largest employer. It's cost us 120,000 jobs.
Yeah.
And I was just watching your show, Mike, and you were talking about the future for our grandkids, for our children. Well, when you dig down into those jobs, the vast majority are for kids between the age of 18 and 25 who want to support themselves, maybe with a Saturday job in the pub to get through college or university. Those jobs have gone.
Yeah.
And now she's stood there and increased all our business rates, which, by the way, during the general election, she said, I am going to help the pubs. I'm going to help the small family-run independent businesses by reforming the business rates. We'll help you, or we'll go for the big boys like the Amazons of the world, the big warehouses and the parcel forces. Well, the average pub business rate has gone up 76%.
Right.
Hotels are up 115%. And then she did a U-turn and said, well, actually, I wasn't fully, I didn't have all the stats and I didn't have all the figures when I stood at the dispatch box and made that. That is an out-and-out lie, Mike, because I'm the chair of the Nighttime Industry Association. We gave her the stats. Every single other trade body gave her the stats and she ignored us. And what happened? The public realised they were going to lose their local pub. So we started to ban MPs, didn't we? 1,500 MPs, 1,500 pubs banned Labour MPs, and they did a U-turn. So it's insulting, and you're right, the Chancellor has to go.
Yeah, I think so. The problem is, of course, people say to me about both Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, if they go, which I sincerely hope they do, what comes next? I mean, you know, there really isn't anybody qualified in this government to run anything. I mean, we've seen how tone deaf they are when they talk about business. They don't really understand it. They don't get it. You know, on the one hand, she says she's going to help the pub business, and then she puts up business rates, you know, and then she puts up alcohol tax. And, you know, I was staggered, and I shouldn't have been probably, but there was a piece in one of the papers this week or last week about the price of a pint going up on average to say £7 something or other, even outside of London. I mean, in some parts of London now you're paying £9 for a pint. But out of that, most landlords are making about 47p.
It's less, Mike. So a pint at the moment now, when you pay your alcohol duty, which by the way is 20 times more than Germany.
Yeah.
So that's why when you go on holiday to Spain or wherever, you can buy a pint for €3 because we get tax built. You've got your VAT, you've got your beer, you've got your utilities, your staff, your rent, all those costs when they're factored in. The profit on a pint now is about 13 to 14p. So when the Chancellor increases business rates, which might cost, I was speaking to Tom Kerridge yesterday, and his business rates have gone from 50k to 140k.
Yeah, how is that even legal? I mean, how can they do that?
Exactly. And it is so worrying now. And, you know, I've watched the news this week, Mike. I was glued to PMQs. Yeah. And frankly, we are a global embarrassment. You know, it started off with Andrew Mountbatten or whatever whatever his name is now. Yeah. And now the heart of the UK government. What a global embarrassment are we at the moment? And you know, for many years, I've looked at who I thought were conspiracy theories on Twitter and social media about these powerful men and controlling the world and getting away with things, these billionaires. And well, we're seeing now, aren't we, with these Epstein files? It's actually true. Yeah. And I apologise to all those people who were telling me that the likes of Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and all involved in this. Well, we've seen the evidence now.
Yeah.
And this is right at the heart of UK government. This is the biggest scandal of a decade. And for him to stand there yesterday at his week press conference and say, I share your anger. You don't share our anger,
No.
Keir Starmer. You're not one of us. You are the man that ignored your intelligence services and defied them and employed Peter Mandelson in one of the cushiest jobs in the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, just leave your post now.
Exactly right. Because we don't even know the half of it. I mean, I've been asking these questions all week, really. I mean, what was he doing when he was in Washington, Mandelson? You know, when he was sitting in a very nicely upholstered, I've been inside the embassy there, so I know and also the ambassador's residence in a very beautiful part of Washington, D.C. I mean, it's gorgeous. Who was he talking to when he was doing that job? You know, whose secrets was he selling to whoever it was that he was selling them to? I mean, I find it absolutely... And the thing that really, really, I think, pisses an awful lot of people off, and I apologise for swearing, is, you know, nowadays, you become an MP, you become a politician, and you suddenly become very wealthy. And I'm starting to get a bit suspicious about that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you know, people might know that I'm close to Andy Burnham. I worked as his nighttime economy advisor for 7 years, and I've witnessed in the last couple of weeks the lies that Number 10 spin. A government should not be able to lie. You know, when they blocked him, do you know how he found out he was blocked, Mike? He read it in The Guardian.
You're joking.
This is No, he read it in The Guardian. Then 20 minutes later, they phoned him up. And this is someone that's dedicated 30 years of his life to the Labour Party. What a kick into what an insult. And then they turned around and said, well, actually, we told Andy Burnham that if he stood, that we would block him. We told him that in advance before he put his name forward. That was an absolute lie as well. And actually, Number 10 had to put a statement out retracting that.
Right.
And they're all over the place. You know, it's concerned. You're absolutely right, Mike. We are a cruise liner with no captain, and we're heading towards, you know, no one knows where we're going at the moment, but they should be running the country. And what Starmer has done is he's put himself, his job, before country and before party. And that is a huge, huge insult. And blocking Andy Burnham, well, he blocked the wrong man, didn't he?
Well, he did.
You know,
Well, it's all gone a bit wrong for him since he did that, because if he hadn't done that, he might have had a chance of getting a bit of a boost by winning the by-election, because Andy Burnham probably would have won the by-election. But now it looks like Labour are going to be pushed probably into third place. Reform might win it, but a lot of people are now predicting people will vote Green. They'll get the Muslim vote, but also get the disaffected kind of left of the Labour Party as well. And so there's nothing good on the horizon for old Starmer, who's obviously lost the key to the bridge on the cruise liner, to carry on with that analogy. And there's a couple of icebergs looming ahead. And like you say, the thing that I think annoys people the most about him is that he just lies, out and out lies. I mean, he came back from China and he stood up in the House of Commons and he said, I took 60 top business leaders with me. He didn't. He took some multinational CEOs, but an awful lot of the people that went were people that ran things like the Natural History Museum. And he took the West Midlands mayor with him, you know, so-called cultural leaders. I mean, he should have been taking people like you and saying, right, you know, what business opportunities can we get out of China? You know, I don't particularly want to do business with China, but if that's what we're going to do, take some people who know a thing or two about business. You know, what's the point of taking the leader of the Natural Bloody History Museum?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, to be honest, I probably wouldn't risk myself sitting in the same plane as Starmer at the moment. But yeah, you know, for the sake of the country, he needs to go. It's just, it's an absolute circus that we're watching at the moment. And if he thinks for 1 minute it's going to go away, I know he's listening to McSweeney, but he's got this one absolutely wrong. This is not going away. As I said, this is the biggest scandal in 100 years of my lifetime. Bigger than Profumo.
No question. No question. I said this at the beginning of the week. I said it's easily the biggest political scandal of this century. And then the more I thought about it, actually, I mean, I was sort of barely alive, I think, when the Profumo thing kind of was going on. And I don't really remember it. But this is bigger than anything that's ever happened in my lifetime, that's for sure. And the thing is that his continual kind of inability to see the truth, because I think he's been lying for so long, like a lot of people who lie, they forget, they don't know what the truth is, you know. And for him to now try and play kind of the victim and say, oh, you know, I was lied to by that horrible man, Peter Mandelson. Oh, well, really? You know, how are you the only person in Britain who didn't know Peter Mandelson was a liar?
Yeah, and I have to say, you know, the leader of the opposition, Kemi, tore him a new one.
She did.
Wednesday at PMQ. Yeah. I was actually very impressed with her. She was very statesman-like. Can you say statesperson-like before the woke brigade jump on me? But yeah, she was very, very impressive, actually.
I thought she did it really well because she did it in a kind of calm, quite forensic way. He used to talk about being forensic, you know. Well, he's not. As people said to me, you know, yes, I think she's got a law degree, but she appeared to be a better lawyer than he is, and she's not a lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely. Calm, collected. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
And he looked like a broken person, actually. People were talking about handshaking. I've not seen that, but I think he knows. I think he knows time's up. It's just how and when.
Yeah.
And you talk about him on the back bench as well. You know, I think somebody who's ignored what's happened with Mandelson doesn't even deserve to be on the back benches. They need to be out of Parliament.
Yeah.
You know, just get on with something else.
Couldn't agree more.
As you said, they represent the public. They need to go.
Yeah. So are you kind of politically homeless now then? Because a couple of people have messaged in to say, what do you think of reforms plans for the pub business? For example, they announced the other day that they would reduce VAT, which I know is something you've asked for in the past, down to 10%, and to cut business rates and make it easier for them to make money.
Yeah, I mean, I welcome what they announced with open arms. You're right, they're talking about reversing NI, they're talking about cutting VAT, reversing business rates. You know, this is all welcome. I worry that they've not got the numbers right. A couple of trade bodies have caught them out on that. I think Bournemouth University run the numbers. It doesn't quite stack up, but they are definitely, you know, that is where we need to be looking at. A VAT reduction for this sector is absolutely what we need. And if you think about it, the last Chancellor that did this was Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, coming out of COVID, he reduced VAT down to 5%.
I do remember that, yeah. I used to go out, because I used to be in sort of shock sometimes. I'd go out for lunch or dinner or something, and I'd go, blimey, there's hardly any VAT on this. This is great. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it saved businesses, but more importantly, that saved jobs.
Yeah.
Now, we pay the highest VAT in the whole of Europe. On average, there's a sector-specific VAT number of about between 7 and 8%. Obviously, we're at 20%, so we've all been calling to reduce VAT. Yeah. Even if you reduce down to 12.5%, would still be the 26th most taxed country in Europe. That's where we are. So yeah, it's welcome what they're talking about. And you know, I'd say to the other parties like the Tories and you know the Greens, and let's start talking about hospitality, because as said, we are the 5th biggest industry in the UK. We're the 3rd largest employer, and we were the first ones to close during COVID. We were the last ones to open. We're saddled with debt, and we're being taxed up to the eyeballs. And it just feels like at the moment we're an industry who are just collectors of tax. And I know people, Mike, who haven't taken a wage for 12 months, operators.
Yeah.
You know, they're running the pub to pay the staff, to look after the customers, you know, to look at the old fellas that go in there at 6 o'clock by themselves, who've lost their wives and sit there nursing a pint for 2 hours. You know, it's more than just a pint. We are part of Fabric DNA. We're a community service. And the government failed to understand that.
Yeah, they do. And because of the way that they've come up through the ranks of the political business and you know, local councils and charities and all of that, they have no clue. I mean, and like many people, spent an awful lot of money in the last 2 months paying corporation tax, paying my personal tax before the end of January, people scrimping and saving to make sure that they can just get, particularly, you know, small business owners, people who are self-employed, you know, who don't have their taxes withheld at the beginning of the month or whatever it is. And they have no understanding of that. And I don't understand as well how we can be so highly taxed in this country and yet we haven't got any money. You know, they don't seem to know how to run the country. You know, they, instead of cutting back on their expenses, which is what you and I would have to do if we suddenly, you know, had a debt to pay, they just carry on as if everything's fine. I mean, somebody told me the other day, Liam Halligan was on the other day, and he said, if we had to go cap in hand to the IMF, like we did in the 1970s, because we're bankrupt as a country, they haven't actually got enough money to help us out.
So I'll give you a perfect example of how Rachel Reeves does not understand our sector. So she brought in the national insurance increase, which the industry couldn't afford. So straight away, what happened? You start looking at reducing hours. You start looking at cutting staff costs. Maybe you'd have 6 working on a Saturday night. You reduce that down to 5, and you close bang on the hour. You might start opening slightly later to reduce overhead of costs. So what did she do? She came out and said, great news, I've decided I'm going to let you all open for longer, extend your hours. We've been saying, well, we can't do that. We're cutting the hours back, and you're telling us to stay long. So she doesn't understand business. And you're right, Mike. You know, I sold my business, both businesses, a couple of years ago, but I think back to 30 years ago when I'd have sleepless nights at the end of the month. You know, I've got to pay my PAYE bill. I've got to pay the staff next Friday, and I would honestly have fear for weeks and weeks and weeks having to get through this and building a business.
Of course.
No one in the cabinet have suffered that fear and anxiety. They don't understand how a business is run. They really don't. And I'm a strong believer that, you know, if you're going to have a health secretary, at least have a background understanding of medics. You know, if you're going to have someone talking about hospitality, well, have somebody at the table who understands hospitality. Not someone that's been to a pub for a photo shoot during a general election. That's not an understanding of the industry.
Right. Yeah, pulling a pint of Guinness into a wine glass.
I mean, honestly, ridiculous. What was that all about?
I know, just mad. Anyway, listen, we're out of time. Great to see you, Sasha, and good to see you in such good heart. I've got a message for you from Donald McLeod. He says, please say hi to Sasha for me. He was down here last week, wreaking havoc all over London, I'm afraid. Took us a couple of days to recover. But listen, great to see you, and good luck with it all. We'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
Have a great weekend, Mike.
Thank you, Sasha. Thank you. Sasha Lord there reporting in to us from Manchester, who says that he's actually sorry that he voted for these idiots and supported them, the Labour government, of course. Right now, though, it's time for Plank of the Day.
Hello, it's Plank of the Day time.
And following on, basically, from that conversation with Sasha Lord, there can only be one person who picks up Plank of the Day, and that is, of course, the one and only Chancellor of the Exchequer, Richard III, a.k.a. Rachel Reeves, OK? She's been told, once again this week, that the economy is in even worse shape than she thought it was, right? Because she said everything was going to get better. Do you remember when we turned the corner into the brand new year of 2026? Keir Starmer actually came out and said that we will be richer, that we will feel better off, that we will have more money in our pockets in 2026. That's what the Labour government said. The message from the Chancellor of the Exchequer was that we're beginning to see the economy picking up, right? Well, apparently that's not true. According to the Bank of England, the next 2 years are going to be even more miserable than the last 2, right? They said tax hikes towards the end of the decade will hinder the economy. It expects growth to possibly begin around about 2028, by which time half of us will all be dead. Brilliant, right? Well, that's talking 2 years away. The next 2 years, the economy is going to be weaker than predicted. There's going to be no growth whatsoever, despite the fact that Rachel Reeves told us that she was all about growth. That's what she was going to be, the growth chancellor. As we just heard from Sasha Lord there, she thinks the answer for pubs who are not making enough money to make more money is to open for longer. Don't you understand, you stupid woman, that if you open the pub for longer, you need to pay people more to work there when you haven't got anybody coming in because they haven't got any money because you've been taxing them too much, right? According to the prospects for the next sort of few months, unemployment will be peaking at around about 5.3% between April and June. That could mean another 100,000 people put out of work, okay? Bank of England's survey of business contacts found that higher labour costs and the potential impact of workers' rights laws are also going to hit firms' hiring plans, so nobody's going to get hired to do a job. Basically, Labour's mismanagement of the economy has delivered the opposite of growth, according to the Bank of England. This is what they said. The decision to hike taxes and increase borrowing to fund more welfare has flatlined growth and pushed up unemployment and inflation. Well done, Rachel. You are today's Plank of the Day.
The Conservatives are now the party of high tax. On their watch, the tax burden is the highest in 70 years. I worked as an economist at the Bank of England before entering politics. I know what it takes to run a successful economy.
Hello, it's Plank of the Day time.
She knows what it takes to run a successful economy. Well, why is she doing the complete opposite then? Unbelievable. Listen, it's 9:33. It's time for Heron of the Day. And there it is. This is from, who is it from? Sloan. Sinbad on Twitter. It's not a heron though, is it? Because it's got a straight neck. And I mean, we've been informed by Donald MacLeod, the expert in herons, that you can only be a heron if you've got an S-shaped neck. Now, that hasn't got an S-shaped neck, it's got an L-shaped neck. So maybe it's not a heron, I don't know. Can't tell. Perhaps somebody could help us out. Anyway, listen, we've come to the end of another fabulous week. We can only say thank you to all of you for pushing the figures even further higher up into the stratosphere than ever before. More viewers this week than we've ever had on week 5, this is. We're going to go into week 6 on Monday, of course. We're here now every single weekday from 7 till 9:30. We've now got an address, by the way, if you want to send us anything. And I think we've got some posts to pick up. So we might be opening Mike's post bag on Monday. But here it is. Suite 19.6, Exhibition House, Addison Bridge Place, London, W14 8XP, and that's United Kingdom, of course, or disunited Kingdom, it should probably say. So that's the postal address if you want to send it. I'll put it out on social media as well so that you can do whatever you wish. Please do, by all means. I mean, send us nice things, don't send us terrible things. But tonight, of course, Plank of the Week is going to be available 7 p.m, as it always is. And then we'll have a roundup at the weekend, of course. We'll also have Plonk of the Week, which goes out on Saturday night, which includes, by the way, some Trump wine. This from Bavaria. I've just bought some Viagra tea bags. They don't improve your sex life, but they stop your biscuits going soft. Thank you very much indeed for lowering the tone. It's 9:34. I'm going to sign off for the weekend. I'm going to go to the rugby at the weekend as well, which should be quite fun. Unfortunately, it's going to be raining, I suspect. But there we are. Have a great weekend. Thank you once again for watching the Mike Graham Show. And we'll see you tonight for Plank of the Week at 7 o'clock.
Remember, despite all of the others out there, it's always the others. Don't be a plank.